What is up, everybody? Happy post-Thanksgiving for us Americans. Maybe not so much for Craig over there. But special after 3-game Friday edition of Sports Clichés here. I'm Jay. This is Craig. And what a wild previous week and 3 games we had just in the season right there, dude.
Yeah, yesterday was interesting, right? Because there was 2 games that were pretty shit, and then 1 game was unbelievably good. Oh, man.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, one predictably was going to be not that great, right?
I had said it going into the week. I thought that Bears-Lions game had the potential to be the worst Thanksgiving game of all time. It might have been close. I don't have a list of Thanksgiving games through history, but boy, that was bad.
Well, it was definitely interesting. I mean, you got to say that. You know, it was
down
like,
the wire.
what the hell is going on? And I that was actually going to be the second thing I jumped into, but yeah, we might as well jump right into it. I don't know, like, what the hell is going through the Detroit coaching staff's head at the end of that game when over 2 minutes left. You got all 3, right? All 3 timeouts. Yeah. You've been looking fairly good. Your defense has kept you in it in this game the entire time against, granted, a Bears team that hasn't been too good at all, but shown flashes. Fields has shown some flashes of offense, better than when he, was first starting out. But Detroit Lions defense that kept him in this game has actually kept him in a lot of games. If that offense could put up like 20-something points, I read something like that, 20-something points, if they get that in every single one of their games, they're 5-6, which is crazy to believe. So they've been really right there in being able to get these games. And this one was absolutely within their grasp. And then it just falls apart from the first timeout was bad enough because they didn't need to. They like the first timeout. I can't remember. I know there was the head pat one, and that was I believe the second timeout that cost them. First timeout, yeah, that's fine, whatever. And people would argue call that before the 2-minute warning instead of after. That's kind of a mistake.
Run another play, then you get another stop of the clock. The 2-minute warning counts as a free timeout, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So why not use a timeout before it, make them run a play, then get the 2-minute warning? That takes you probably the second down. Third down, you take a timeout. They kick the field goal. You save yourself a timeout.
Yeah, or
right.
At the very least, like the time at least, from play to play, you're not draining time basically unnecessarily. You have the ability to stop the clock. You need to get the ball back. Stop the clock. And then, the second timeout, the panic, I guess it looked like the D coordinator runs over and he's calling a timeout, but they had just called the one.
Yeah, and you could see Patricia was kind of not happy about it. Or not Patricia. DC, he was not happy about it. He recognized it right away. It was interesting if you watch it because you can see him kind of waving off, and then you see him hit the timeout thing because he knows that the referee just called it, and you see him do the T, and you can see how upset he is. He knows what happened there. But I was watching it again. Lions had too many men on the field, anyways. It's a 5-yard penalty either way.
Yeah.
Right. Now you would obviously save the timeout in that situation, but I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, that yardage cost them the game." No, the loss of the timeout. Maybe, but the yardage didn't. They had 13 guys on the field. Like, 13. They were way over.
And I guess bad personnel management on that. Guys have to be getting on and off. Maybe that is on the players. That feels like definitely some coaching mistakes there, obviously, toward the end. And I guess this is something we had talked about in previous weeks. And, this team... they've looked fiery at points. They've actually really shown up. A tie against a Pittsburgh team you really wouldn't have expected in that situation, even without Ben. Scrappy in other games, been really close within 2 points, that sort of thing. But
there's some really good teams this year.
But you gotta, I don't know. At some point, something's got to give. It's hard for me to say right now. this team with better players, like are they really picking up that many more wins, or is this like I don't know, is this just busted from the ground down? Because I've been very doubtful about Campbell before. I said before, I hope he's not another Singletary. A great player, real fiery guy, but can't get results on the field. You said that Niners team was way more toxic of a situation, and this Lions team is probably a little bit better put together. I'm just wondering, dude, if you still get no wins in a season, man, that's tough, especially with the defenses they have shown up. This defense has shown up. It's such a fucking shame they can't get it done to actually close
I
out a win. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you look at that roster though, before the season, realistically, I think I wrote down the Lions as a 3-win team. Right?
Yeah,
Like they're bad. They're bad talent-wise.
they cut their, basically took one of their best weapons and just threw them away. Essentially, like
So we look at them now,
got
they're 0
peanuts for
and
that guy.
they're
God,
they're
it's
0-10-1, whatever the heck it is. I still think they bust out a win or two. They play too hard, right, to not scrap one across, right? They got the Broncos, who I don't love. They got the Falcons, who they can beat. The Seahawks are a mess. We'll talk about them later,
oh
obviously.
yes, we
But
will talk about them.
I think they can scrape out a win or two. Let's say they end up with 2 wins. They're only one win worse than what I thought they were going to be talent-wise, right? Even if they scrape out 1 win, and you look at the way they played for Dan Campbell, do you fire him over missing 2 wins off your expectation? I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know when that team plays that hard.
it's yeah. As I'm rooting for him. I hope it goes their way. This is what have you done for me lately? And if you don't do something better soon enough, then you're not even given the chance. I hope he gets the chance there. It seemed like prior to the season that he was going to get a bit of a run, but you'd hope they'd pick up a couple of these wins in here that they really had a chance to get, and they just let them slip. And obviously, yeah, an 0-10-1 team, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's just like in the clutch moments when they really had a chance, and they absolutely had a chance to win that game yesterday. It was just really tragic to just kind of see it all slip away right there. And Chicago just able to take, easy chip shot field goal for the win. That's just like, oh my God, you let go like that. It's hard to watch. But Andy Dalton, hey, got him 16 points, enough, I guess.
He was okay. I actually thought he got outplayed by Jared Goff, who I thought played his best game as a Lion, and they just couldn't get the ball in the end zone, right?
Yeah.
Like Goff did a good job of not giving the ball away, right? And let's be honest, that's the bar Goff has set for us. Just don't screw up, right? We're not expecting the spectacular anymore, Jared. Just don't mess it up. And he didn't. 2 touchdowns, no picks. I know he only threw like 180 yards, but hey, this is an improvement by Jared Goff standards now.
But
So
yeah, I mean, but Goff is, yeah, at least accurate. But I mean, God, dude, he's throwing behind his guys on 5-yard slants constantly and drag routes and stuff. It's like if you can't get your little timing routes down with that offense right now, you're done. And his favorite swing pass option in DeAndre Swift, probably absolutely you would say their best weapon, unfortunately going down in that game. That really, I could see potentially like taking a look at their schedule. Yeah, maybe eke a win out, maybe 2 there. But I don't know. They just lost more. I don't know how good this is going to go for them going forward. I think that's probably going to be Goff's best game of the season right there. And it's still ended up a loss.
The scary thing for the Lions is looking at this draft coming up. It's not even like getting you number 1 gets you a franchise quarterback, right?
No, of course not.
Probably gets them a guy I quite like in Kayvon Thibodeau, who with that Oregon team, he's phenomenal. He's a great edge rusher. He'll give that defense just another boost. I think that defense has potential to be pretty good. There's some good players on that side of the ball who are doing good things, and you're probably gonna add Kayvon Thibodeau. that's going to help. But you look at the quarterback class this year, right? Because they got 2 first rounders this year, right? Or no, they have a couple second rounders that a lot of people think they might trade up into first rounders. Um, so even if you trade back into the first round, late first round, there's, I mean, we're talking about guys like Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, right? Matt Corral. There's just not a quarterback in this class that pops to you, right? So you're maybe looking at another year of Jared Goff next year if you're the Lions. And realistically, if you're looking to help your coach, like if you do believe in this coach and you want to prove to everybody that you believe in this coach, they got to do something this offseason to address quarterback. Jared Goff's not it. He's not it. He'll never be it. He's never going to be it. I know he's got a big contract that you guys are eating now. Congratulations. You made the dumbest trade in the history of the NFL. Probably not. That's an exaggeration, but it's bad. You're going to eat that contract for a while. Sit him on the bench. You're not winning anything with Goff. He's just not good enough. He played great with Sean McVay pulling the strings, and looking back on it now, that Rams defense pulling the strings.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think they are stuck with him for the 2022 season. I believe they are because
they're stuck with him for 2023 too. That the negative cap on that is bad if they cut him.
It's 10 mil for 2023. It's 30.5 if they cut him next year.
Yeah, I knew next year it's almost impossible.
You actually can't even cut him at that. So whether and really, like, I don't know, there is going to be some potentially interesting veterans out there that they maybe take a look at. But yeah, I don't think you. Yeah, there's probably no one young to bring in the draft, notably, anyways. And yeah, I mean, I think you have pieces there. So you could start to kind of get some weapons, perhaps, or some solid, players maybe on the defensive side of the ball, something like that. And you might have to just ride out another pretty meh season. But with the out in 2023, and who knows? I mean, that's kind of savage to say. It's like we still got like the whole rest of this season, and then looking forward even past the next season. It's like, you might be able to get out of it in 2023. But that's the situation they put themselves in. They picked up this Goff contract that I don't think anybody would have expected that the Rams would have got off the hook for that as well as they have. So
I don't know, man.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, Lions are just gonna.
I feel for Dan Campbell. I really do.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I had them as a 3-win team going into the season, and probably being the worst or second worst team in the NFL. They were going to be down at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And you look at the way this team plays and the heartbreak that happens. And I do believe negative momentum is just as much of a thing as as positive momentum, right? Yeah. People always talk about momentum all the time, but they always talk about it in a positive way, right? When things are rolling, they just go your way. Yeah. Happens the opposite way too, man. When things are not going your way, when you are that snake bitten, it's just going to keep falling down, right? That shit's just going to keep rolling down the hill. And you talked about it. This is a team that could realistically be 5-6. They're 0-10-1.
Yeah, let's talk about, you're talking about 20 points. 20 points. NFL team. Got to be able to, well, some teams can get away with it. Somehow Baltimore's put up wins in games to where they've struggled to put up 20, if that. It's like, so I guess, I mean, we have some defenses or whatever, things that fall into place to where you can win games, scoring little. But it's just crazy that with that defense playing as well, I would have, they're playing way above what this team record is showing right now, and it's a damn shame because it's gonna be just 1 year on some of the tires for these guys. Some guys it's gonna be good. That's gonna be a year experience for them.
And I mean, to take your point, your 5 and 6 point a step further, all but 3 of their games this year were within 10 points.
Yeah.
Right. And like that's why you find me picking the Lions a lot on these lines, right? Because they don't lose like that. And bookies look at the 0-10-1 record and they're like plus 12 points, plus 13 points, plus 11 points. That doesn't happen to the Lions very often. They're gonna break your hearts. I I don't know, man. I feel for them because I think they're definitely the best 0 for team I've ever seen. I'll throw that down right now. They're the best winless team I've ever seen. By virtue of having a tie, they also can safely say that no matter what, right? We didn't lose every game. We have to be better than the other ones, but there's something about them, right? Where it's like, God, if you could just get a win or two behind this team, you could easily see them winning 2, 3 in a row and kind of ending the season looking okay if they could just turn some of this shit around, but I don't know if they can.
I mean, probably their worst looking loss has been against the Eagles.
The
And
Eagles loss, yeah.
I guess that could kind of parlay us right into that. The motherfucking Philadelphia Eagles. What has Sirianni done? What weird metaphor bullshit is he preaching to the team right now that's working? And why the hell did he start running the ball all of a sudden?
Say, he figured out
His third week in a row, I'm bringing this shit up. What the hell is he doing? All of a sudden, he's going to hand the rock off a bunch. And it's like, you should have been. I don't know why you weren't doing this from the beginning. With Jalen Hurts especially back there. Help that kid out as much as possible. Run the rock.
You know what happened? He figured out, hey, we have paid like 20% of our salary cap into our offensive line. Let's use it. They're paying a lot for that offensive line right now.
Right.
And you know what? Paying off. That offensive line is bullying teams, man.
Right.
Lane Johnson is still the man, right? Like, you look at, it's an older offensive line. Obviously, they're not the youngest offensive line anymore, but they're smart. They know what they're doing. They bully teams, and man, the Saints defense coming into that game, I thought they were gonna be able to boss that game on the line, right? I thought that Saints run defense was gonna be able to step up, and instead they got ran over. And now you look at what happened with Dallas yesterday,
Right.
and oh, the NFC East isn't guaranteed anymore. Eagles win this week. They're a game back. There is 2 divisions out there that if you asked me about 8 weeks ago, I'd have said they're done and dusted. And it's the NFC East and the AFC East, and they are not done and dusted anymore.
I mean, AFC East was always going to be a little tough. I mean, yeah, you take a look at.
Did you think the AFC East was going to be tough when the Patriots were 1-4?
Oh no, sorry. My mistake. I was thinking AFC West for some reason. AFC East, yeah, absolutely no. You're completely right on that. NFC East would have absolutely been that. I mean, Dallas looked head and shoulders above the rest.
Looks so much better than everybody else.
Obviously, yeah, maybe a little ding here and there, and that was a crazy, awesome game. Obviously,
that game was so much fun. Not Thanksgiving in Canada, but it's a bit of a tradition in my house, right? Me, my mom, and dad, we all sit down, we watch football games. That's what we do, right? We're a sports family. It's a fun day for us as well. And yeah, my dad's a Cowboys fan. He was none too pleased. Oh. But what a fun game that was to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a little bit more fun if the refs didn't fucking throw a flag every 2-3 plays, but outside of that, and that will be actually a topic for I think toward the we'll get into that maybe toward the end of the show here. But I mean, yeah, otherwise a lot of fun. I love to see they got a couple packages out there for Mariota doing a little running around, getting a tutty. That was great to see. I have to wonder, where this team with Zeke is going forward. I mean, you get a lot of pop from a guy like Tony Pollard right now.
I was going to say, they still have Tony Pollard back there too, right? It's not like they're going downhill. Tony Pollard could very well himself be one of the top 10 running backs in the NFL. He's very good.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of people early in the season in Dallas who are actually calling for Pollard to get more of the ball than Zeke. They thought they were getting more juice out of Tony Pollard. Um, Honestly, Dallas just doesn't run the ball enough. That's Dallas's problem right now. They ran the
Right.
ball 19 times between the two of them yesterday, right? Josh Jacobs outran the Dallas team by himself, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta get the ball in their hands a little bit more. Dak is unbelievable, but you're gonna lose a lot of games when you throw the ball 47 times, right? It I just feel like you can wear down that defense so easily when you have two unbelievably good running backs like the Cowboys do, and they just don't use them, right? We saw it in the Broncos loss when Dak was off, and for some reason they just refused to run the ball. And we saw it again yesterday, right? And now I get it. There's a little bit of situationalness in that, right? In the fourth quarter, you're down. You need to make a bit of a run there, but I've always I think we've both said this a couple times, and I've always been of the opinion like, unless you're really down, there's no reason to move away from the run because you're losing, right? You can still use the run
Yeah.
effectively when down. As a matter of fact, it almost becomes more effective because you're down a couple scores here, maybe midway through the third, right? Down a couple scores. Teams are thinking you're going to huck the ball down the field. You got a couple running backs like that who can break off a big play out of nowhere. Why not give them a couple shots to do it? They didn't. And I do think that hurt them in the long run because, you know, that Raiders defense, as that game got later on, uh, tired a lot. And I think Dallas maybe could have done a little bit more damage just letting them run the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, I think kind of, yeah, right now offenses are obviously, they're way more predicated on the pass. I mean, offense is literally uh, running out there, and as far as their starters are concerned, it's three wideouts, a tight end, and a running back. I mean, who carries a fullback nowadays? Very few teams actually even
The,
carry a
the
worthy fullback, right?
I can think of two off the top of my head, which are the Niners and the Titans.
Raiders have a decent one. You have a couple
Raiders
of
too,
those
yeah, yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, but exactly. Like, and then everybody, it's very middling and that sort of thing. Or they're just sliding a tight end down there, but someone who clearly is a tight end, maybe in that situation. But I think that's one thing is that offenses just aren't built around run the ball a decent amount. And when you start to not have the really quality, maybe blocking tight end or a fullback, that sort of thing, it's not so much you're having to win more individual battles as far as the offensive line is concerned, right? You're having to find kind of gaps because it's just so thin up there, as opposed to like when you have a good fullback, that sort of thing. You could actually like really dictate like zones of places to run. So I think conceptually when it's not really in your game plan like that, it's these teams, yeah, they're gonna go away from it so quick because, all right, let's get into our short passing game, bubble screens and that sort of thing. It's kind of the supplement to the run. That's what teams are starting to go for now. Jet sweeps, stuff like that. And those BS little quick shovel in front passes, which are now, they're called passes, but that's a fucking run play.
That's right.
So yeah, it's a shame because I think there are games I feel like have been not necessarily won because a team was playing better defense. The offense became more predictable. You stop folding in an entire half of play calling and not call run plays anymore. You get those soft defenses. Everybody runs a nickel now basically as their base defense. No one really runs 3-4s, 4-3s as their base defense because they're losing a defensive back there, and because teams are going three wide, of course you're gonna kind of try to match that. It would be interesting to see a guy like Pollard really be able to command first, starter touches. Because that's the one thing. He's always kind of been the backup, and then obviously when Zeke's been injured, he's been able to step up, but it hasn't been consistent throughout a season. I wonder how he would carry that load going down the line, late into the season like that. But yeah, I think he's a hell of a weapon, and it's kind of a shame that he does have that split backfield. You're not really gonna find too many solo backs nowadays, though. So he's gonna be in a timeshare regardless of probably where he's playing or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to get back to the point, hell of a game. It was good to have one good game during
Yeah.
Thanksgiving while we were all sitting
Big
around
win
there.
for the Raiders too. We spent a lot of time there talking about the Cowboys.
Yeah,
That win for the Raiders is season saving because they had been in real trouble dropping to 5-6 there in that division. Go to 6-5 again. You're right in the mix with all those teams. You keep touch with the Chargers. You keep touch with the Chiefs. That's a season saver, I think, for the Raiders. And one I've said it over the last couple of weeks. I feel like a lot of what's happened with the Raiders, I feel bad for them for,
yeah,
because you can't predict all this shit happening, right? It's not like these guys had a history where it's like, okay, you should have seen this coming. It all kind of compounded from out of nowhere, right? I read an article at the start of the season about how the Raiders are changing their ways from the convict teams of the past, right? From when they would bring in anybody who had been to jail and been released who had talent, right? They were talking about how that's changed recently with guys like Derek Carr, who is clearly a very morals-based guy, right? And becoming more of a likable team. And then all this shit falls on their lap, right? And it just all falls downhill. There's absolutely nothing you can do as a team there. But I love seeing the way they came out in that game. They came out and they punched Dallas in the mouth. They said, this is a game that we need to win, and we are going to do whatever we can to win it.
yeah.
Derek Carr slinging the ball like he was at the start of the season, right? Deshaun Jackson looking like prime Deshaun Jackson again, busting off big plays. Hunter Renfrow is still, in my opinion, if not the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL, top two or three most underrated. He's unbelievably good. Uh, and the Raiders pull out a big win that they needed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's this division. It's really going to come down to, because all these teams, I believe, are going to just like I believe everybody has a game against each other.
Yeah.
Right now, yeah, KC after their bye week this week, they're going to be going into or they're going to be hosting Denver Raiders and playing the Chargers one more time, and then even playing Denver one more time, going into Mile High there against Denver at the end of the season. Denver, yeah, I mean, they're all gonna be trading games, so to stay above 500 right now is pretty big. It'll be this is not, yeah, I would say a few weeks ago we would not have thought that KC would have kind of bounced back as early as they have and have taken the division lead right there. Obviously just one game up because now they're taking their bye, which
Yeah.
the Chargers already have taken. So a little bit of that, and we'll see where the Chargers end up. We'll talk about that game soon enough here. And this kind of leads into a topic, I think, as far as kind of the general, taking a look at this previous week's games and seeing how poorly some of the, or not even necessarily poorly, some of these were kind of heartbreaker games, but the division leaders right now in,
So really quickly, we're just gonna skip the Bills and Saints. We're just gonna pretend that game didn't happen yesterday, like
well,
the Saints did.
Bills previously though, not, they've been absolutely just a really weird team to read in general. And I think that Buffalo game, it was 10-0 at half, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, so it wasn't looking too bad at half, but yeah, that game sucked. But I mean, as far as, taking a look at division leaders right now, you obviously have that surging Patriots team right now, and they have all of a sudden come up right on the boat. Bills needed to get that game right there, obviously.
Yeah, they could have ended up, if they dropped that game, they could have ended up 2 games behind the Patriots before this week was over. And that would have been real panic time in Buffalo. They get the win. Is New England on their bye this week? Maybe
no.
they would have only ended up 1 game. No, they're not. Okay. So yeah, they could have ended up, you know, really being in panic stations with New England kind of pulling away. They needed a win against the Saints. They got it. Trevor Siemian is just not an NFL quarterback. Let's
Um,
be honest, right? Like the Saints I feel for because I feel like they had a team that maybe could have been a playoff
oh yeah,
team
no,
before all the injuries and all the bullshit that's happened to them.
yeah.
They've been very unlucky, right?
It,
Losing Kamara and losing Jameis Winston and it's just one thing on top of another for them, and they just don't look like a team that's in it anymore.
I think it actually. I mean, as much as I really love Alvin Kamara, I think he's a friggin' weapon that
Yeah,
gets kind of underutilized in that New Orleans offense at times.
and
There's times where he's barely getting touches,
yeah,
given the game. But I think absolutely once Winston went down with the ACL, they were more or less done, and it's a damn shame because I think this team actually really does go if Winston's in there. I think they are. Obviously, like Winston, a little kind of up and down at parts, but mostly ups.
yeah,
And they're definitely in any playoff conversation you're talking about if he's in there. I feel, and you can't look at that team and how they're performing for the last handful of games and be
yeah.
like, that team has no fucking chance of making the playoffs right now.
No, they don't look good.
Not good. But I mean, kind of, yeah. Well, I mean, to the just take a look, kind of what I was getting at as far as you got a Baltimore team that is just barely scraped by a Bears team, barely. And again, Baltimore's been doing this all damn season. You have no idea. Like they still pick up wins, but they screw up spreads left and right. Cincy, which was your all of a sudden surprise dominant looking team, and then they've regressed, but now 6-4, they're right there at the top of that division. Pittsburgh, I mean, you tie the Lions, and it's just that feels like two losses almost, but um, still hanging in there. And oddly enough, just a funny little coincidence if you take a look at how if you're talking about win percentages, you have a 5-win Pittsburgh team that is ranked higher than 6-win teams.
Wins. Yeah.
It's just a funny little, anomaly that you'll have when you have a tie like that. And Cleveland, still an over 500 team right now. As bad and as weird and, that AFC North looking just as mixed up and crazy as the AFC West. This Tennessee team that has just seemed to, like, how the hell do you Houston? And like
I got opinions on that Tennessee team right now.
and you have in what I feel is a Colts team that is nicely kind of bounced back from a rough start.
Watch out for those Colts in that division, man, because Jonathan Taylor is built different. Uh Boy,
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen the rushing race this year if Derrick Henry stayed healthy.
right.
That could have been the most fun rushing race we've had in a while because those two would be going at it. Derrick Henry would have feasted on the freaking Texans last week, right? You just know it. And watching what Jonathan Taylor's been doing to teams, he's disgusting. He's just I don't even know what you do because the thing with Derrick Henry is like he wears you down, right? You'll be able to stop him early, but the more Derrick Henry touches the ball, the less and less you're going to be able to stop him. It's not the case with Jonathan Taylor. Anytime he touches the ball, he could break 50 yards. Anytime. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, doesn't matter when it is. Put the ball in Jonathan Taylor's hands, he could be breaking 50 yards. And, you know, with a Colts team that's got a quarterback who, let's face it, Carson Wentz, much like we were talking about with some of the other quarterbacks, don't really know what he is, right? He has moments where he looks like he's finding that form that he had in Philadelphia at times, and then he'll throw picks for no reason because he just feels like throwing the ball. And I think what the Colts did against the Bills last week was really smart. In they essentially took the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands. Right? They essentially put the ball in Jonathan Taylor's hands and they said, "We will make them stop him before we do anything else." And they never did.
Yeah.
They never could.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I this absolutely it's kind of one of those things to where you worry. as we start going into later in the season, that sort of thing. Obviously, you're talking about wear and tear for a running back. You hope that he's able to, keep it moving, doing well in that part. And you know that, yeah, defenses are going to be aware. There are absolutely games that the Colts are going to be going into toward the end of the season here to where that defensive coordinator on the other side, we take away Taylor. We hone down.
Yeah.
It might be the first instance you'll ever see a running back spy. It's like, just make sure this motherfucker doesn't kill us.
Some cover zeros.
Yeah. It doesn't kill us for, through a gap or something like that. For big chunks of yards. And yeah, make Wentz throw the ball. Wentz has shown that still Huckett, can still have a good game from time to time. But I think in general, yeah, there's you gotta worry about, when is it gonna start backfiring? When you're throwing it, just down the field, kind of to a general area, hoping to get a PI call or whatever the hell they're going for. How much is that gonna start backfiring on them? I really like this Colts team. I think they have the definitely have the pieces to start making that push into the wild card picture. They're already right outside of it, so that's not surprising. And it will be interesting with this Tennessee team right now and how they've looked at points. Really not that far out. Colts are right there, right on their heels. It's you're talking a couple games here, and Tennessee is without Derrick Henry. It'll be interesting.
Without Derrick Henry,
it'll be interesting.
Bad. I've made my opinions on Ryan Tannehill known. Yes. Right. I think he's a benefactor of a running back we haven't seen in maybe since prime Adrian Peterson. Right. Like, we haven't seen a running back of that style of dominance since prime AP, and he's the guy. Like, Ryan Tannehill gets a lot of credit for being the guy who just gives the ball to Derrick Henry. Right? And I think without Derrick Henry especially, we're kind of seeing that now. Tannehill's looked really bad these games without Derrick Henry. That defense bailed out that offense over the first couple of games. Couldn't do it against Houston, right? That, if you're going to be running Tannehill like that, the defense honestly needs to be scoring, right? Like, Tannehill hasn't shown you that he can do it. And against the Texans team whose defense is okay, right? You need to put up 24 against the Texans, and you can't do that? I don't know.
And this is going to be a tough one. They're going in again. Yeah, obviously Henry is kind of the notable one, but they're going into this next week. AJ Brown is listed out. Backup Jerry McNichols is listed out. It's going to even be more so put on Tannehill's shoulders to pull out this win against this surging Patriots team right now, away, having to go into New England to get that game. I could easily, we'll talk about the spread and that sort of thing. I was a little surprised when I first saw it, but then I took a look at that injury report. And I'm like, man, yeah, you wonder how the Tennessee Titans are going to move the ball down the field effectively. It might happen in spurts, but against this New England defense right now, good luck.
Yeah, I can't see how Tannehill doesn't have a similarly bad day. By the way, as an aside, I'd like to point out, I did call a quarterback throwing 4 interceptions in that game. I just called the wrong one.
Yeah. Who would have knew?
In my defense, I didn't know Tyrod Taylor was going to start. I thought they were going to stick with Davis Mills.
Right. And what a team there. I think it was a shame when, granted, Houston, who expected Houston to do anything this season, really? But that team has at least some life in it when Tyrod's in there. I like Tyrod in...
Always been a Tyrod apologist myself, too.
Yeah,
I don't think he's elite by any stretch, but I think you can win a few games in the NFL with Tyrod Taylor behind center. Absolutely. Yeah. The guy makes plays, right? He does things to win you games, right? And which is interesting because usually when you talk about guys who are in that level, that not elite level, but definitely an NFL quarterback, definitely a solid starter. You talk about guys who uh don't lose you games, but don't necessarily do things to win you games. I feel like Tyrod is boom or bust a lot, right? He does things to win you games. He will lose you some games because he does things to win you games and he's not elite. But he does do things to win you games. Dude runs his ass off. He doesn't slide much. He's going down hard, right? He's got a good arm, throws it
Yeah.
well. He's a little bit gunslingery at times, right? Will sometimes throw the ball into bad spots, but you know, that's a guy who goes out there and plays to win games. And he's got the talent to do it. And I think going down the stretch, this Texans team with Tyrod back might be able to play a little bit spoiler down the stretch. Might be able to sneak out a couple games that I don't think teams would have expected them to. Um, they're certainly going to be interesting if Tyrod can stay healthy for them, and that defense can play the way they did last game. Obviously,
Yeah.
um, it'll be fun to watch. That they're definitely an interest. Them and the Lions are very interesting spoiler teams, right? Who you look at the way the Lions play against teams, and you got to figure sooner or later they're going to pull one of these stupid games out that they shouldn't win, right? You look at some of the teams they've played close to, and you figure they're going to pull out one of these when it matters to the other team. That's my thought, man. Is like one of those one score games that they haven't gotten.
Yeah.
They're gonna pull it out when it really matters against one of those teams. And I think the same thing with the Texans, right? They're gonna be a really fun spoiler team because they don't have anything to play for really. But uh they got a quarterback who does things to win games. And I think if they really want to tank, they start Davis Mills. If they want to have some fun, play a little bit of spoiler at the end of the year, you play Tyrod and you'll probably pull out another couple wins.
Yeah. Whether you necessarily, hope that a couple wins is a good thing or a bad thing. I know everybody's kind of jostling for draft position. Maybe
Well,
not so enticing for this draft though. So
we
I've
got
always
we,
I've always been talk about this just a little bit. Like I've always found that kind of interesting. The whole you know when do you tank? Should you tank? Uh, you know wins by teams like Houston that don't have any chance of making the playoffs. Uh, you know, is it just automatically a bad thing because you're potentially losing draft positioning, or is there some? I personally, I think it's one thing. Like, if you're in a, I don't think Dan Campbell and the Lions, like, they're not. I don't think they're purposely losing games. There's obviously a lot of effort
obviously
that's
not.
going into
Yeah.
those, right? But the other teams, you're like, yeah, they're probably not going to start showing up. I think there's one thing though, like if you start doing that in any sport, you talk about you're talking about professional athletes, talk about adults, and kind of the culture that you start to build around an organization is if you literally are going out there to lose games. You got guys that are fucking sacrificing themselves. They're putting their asses out there, 17 games in the regular season, going through training camps, all this shit. And I think it's just this funny thing to where teams feel like they need to tank to build draft capital and they're going to get these young guys. Well, what is this young guy walking into? He's walking into an organization that's hasn't been trying to win for the whole past season, right? I think there's just I think a team culture thing is bigger than some people give it credit for. Because if you don't have a culture there, even if a team like, I think that the Detroit Lions right now, as bad as it looks to be winless right now, you have to kind of look at that organization. It seems like they have a desire to win. And if you're a professional athlete, the whole pinnacle is, obviously getting paid, but it's also being able to, play in the bigger games, that sort of thing. And as much as it's not realistic, it's not like the Lions are going to turn this around in a couple seasons or anything like that. But I don't know. I feel like if you're a professional and you take yourself seriously and you're really trying to you know, got to show that. Like, I wouldn't want to go to a team at all. Like, so the whole free agency market and people, players, especially the good players, they're not going to go to your shitty organization if you've been losing. So it doesn't matter all this draft capital you built up or how much salary cap space you have that you're able to pay them. It's like some guys will take the paycheck, but overall, it's just I've always found it pretty silly for a couple spots on a draft board throwing an entire season away because it's not just one player; it's a whole fucking organization of 50. You have 53 players there. How much are you letting those guys down? It just I don't like the precedents that it sets. Obviously, you can only do so much to quell it. I love the regulation system that soccer has. It's like, hey, you start tanking, we're just going to send your ass to the lower league. You're not even going to be on national TV anymore.
Get down to the championship.
Kind of wish the NFL had something like that to incentivize teams not to tank, like teams have shown in the past. But I don't know. That's just like I've always had that thought. It's just like it's a sad state of affairs when teams are right now at this point in the season and they hate that their team won a game. That's sad to me. It's like, Jesus. I know it's bad, but it shouldn't ever be that bad.
Yeah, I think it depends on what team you are. I will say there's a worse fate than tanking, and it's the mid to late 2000s, early 2010s Detroit Lions, where they were constantly 7-9, 6-10, 8-8, 9-7, right? And nobody wanted to go there anyways, right? Nobody wanted to go there because you weren't going to win anything there, and you had to go to Detroit, right? There's certain markets, there's certain places where tanking is really your only option to get high-end talent, because you're not going to be able to convince free agents away from California, from New York, from the big markets. I do believe that is the case. You look at those Lions teams that I mentioned, with Matt Stafford at quarterback, they had some pieces there. If they could get a couple of free agents in there, they might have been a team who could compete. Nobody wanted to go to Detroit. It's Detroit. Nobody wants to live in Detroit.
I mean, there's a lot of fucking teams in cities where players don't necessarily want to go. Every place can't be Florida or California or, wherever.
But
New
that's
York.
my point, right? Some of those teams, there's some places you kind of have to. Right? That's the only way you're going to improve your team. That's the only way you're going to get the real talent to improve your team.
You know what improves your talent is if you fucking try with the players that are already there. You can only draft so many players and bring so many guys in. Of course they're not going to want to come and show up if you're not trying. Like, if you're clearly an organization that's showing that they're not trying to win games, of course, that's even more incentive not to come there. But it's like, if you're at least fucking going out and those guys, like, you're going to get buy-in, hopefully, with Dan Campbell's Lions right now. You're getting buy-in from the players that are there right now, knowing that they're fucking trying their ass off there. The coaches are trying their ass off to get them there. Just the culture, the give-up mentality in football, yeah, okay, you might get a nice draft pick. You get a shiny fucking thing for 3 years, and then his rookie contract's over, and his ass is out the door anyway. So, I mean, what was the point? You got him for cheap?
Who do you think's more attractive to free agents this offseason, Houston or Detroit?
I mean, we'll see at the end of the season right now. I feel like going into it with the Deshaun Watson situation, all the craziness around it, Houston would never be a place where teams want to go. Absolutely not.
I still think market size values a lot of that. Houston's got that big market. It's a nice new city, right? The city's nice now. It's a beautiful place to live. Those things factor in. I just never think Detroit's going to be a destination where people want to go, regardless of how hard that team plays. And that team plays their ass off. You'd like to think that the professional football players out there go, I got a coach who motivates my team like that. We get some, if that guy comes to my door and wants to add talent to that team that doesn't have any right now, we might be able to win some stuff here, but they're not going to think like that. I think Houston's in a much worse spot right now than Detroit. I still think Houston's a better spot for free agents because they'll go, I get to live in Houston, right? As opposed to living in Detroit.
I mean, whether players live in the place they play is another thing. That's not always the case at all.
You get to spend most of, let's face it, the NFL season, you're going from what, September to February? Most of the shit months is NFL season, right? You get to spend it in Texas instead of Michigan.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're playing in a dome too. I mean, what do you do? Like, it's not like the weather's hitting you that hard either when you're up there. I mean, playing.
Is it Detroit who doesn't have an indoor practice facility?
No, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati doesn't have an indoor practice
Yeah,
facility.
good luck in a fucking Ohio. That sounds
Yeah.
like it sucks balls. But that
That's another one where I don't care how good they are. No free agent's gonna want to go somewhere where they have to practice in the friggin' -20 in Cincinnati in January.
it's kind of surprising how well that team has performed this season, given
Very good.
yeah, since he has not, and that owner doesn't spend money for shit
Nope.
on that team. Why they don't have an indoor practice facility? Because he won't fuck it. He won't give me it up. I think they're looking for the hand down from University of Cincinnati after their bull run coming up here. I guess whatever.
Ah, God, I hope.
Yeah, we're like, hey, you guys are gonna build a new facility, right? We'll take your old one. They're probably gonna do that, something like that. Anyways, that it's we're talking about bottom league bottom league teams here. Let's talk about one quick thing I want to just kind of bring up, and I touched on this briefly last week, and this is a guy I don't feel like is going to go to one of those bottom dwellers. You're talking about attractive teams for kind of marquee players. And we touched upon this last week, and I kind of just had more thought about it and kind of seeing how some of these teams have played, in the last week or so. And I am very intrigued about where Russell Wilson's going to go.
He's got to get his ass out of Seattle.
Because Seattle is that shit's done. That ship sailed. Wilson's gone. Who knows what the fuck Carroll does? Yeah, that shit's done.
Yeah.
And so you kind of brought up the idea of veteran quarterbacks and where they could possibly pop in and make maybe an immediate impact. And you're not looking at a good draft class right now, regardless.
Nope.
Could you see a Russell Wilson even? Oh man, I mean that would be a crazy stretch. I don't think he would do it, but I know in this previous offseason, like the Bears were brought up as a potential landing spot.
Not with Nagy as the head coach. I don't think any quarterback's going to want to go there with Nagy still. If Nagy's still a coach, if they don't fire Matt Nagy, I don't think Russell Wilson's going anywhere near the Bears. Now, if they fire Matt Nagy, if they bring in a coach who has some kind of offensive pedigree, who you really see something there that you're like, that guy knows what he's doing, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be the biggest, sexiest name coach, but somebody that a quarterback in particular could look at and go, finally, the Bears have a coach who knows what the fuck they're doing on offense. I could see that. They got enough talent there where they should be better than 4-7. That team's way more talented than 4-7.
Right.
Like you look at the Vikings and you look at the Bears talent-wise, there's not much difference, right? And unfortunately, the Bears stink and the Vikings are playing quite well. A lot of that comes down to Matt Nagy. If they get rid of Matt Nagy, absolutely. I think the Bears would be very attractive to Russell Wilson. Another team, so I actually thought about this too because we brought up the Russell Wilson thing last week. Another team who I think could be attractive to Russell Wilson, and a team who, boy, if they had a better quarterback, might honestly be a real threat, might be the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They rape past the Lions last week. Now, I know Baker is clearly hurt, and boy, does he look hurt. Right? Baker is not even close to 100%. But was anybody really sold on Baker before the injury? I mean, I never was. I like the way he plays the game. I wish I could say I was sold on Baker because he's fun to watch, man. Nobody has got more passion on that field than Baker Mayfield. But passion only takes you so far. I just don't think he's an elite quarterback. And I think if you're the Browns, you got Chubb and Hunt, you got Peoples-Jones and Landry on the wideouts. You get Russell Wilson in there, that offense looks very attractive. And a defense that has played a poor year this year, but on paper would be one that everybody would be looking to bounce back a little bit next year. I feel bad for kind of writing them out this year because they're 6-5 and right in the middle of the race, but
Yeah.
they don't look like a team that's going to make the playoffs this year. They really don't. Like, that could be another team, but again, not the most attractive market in the world. But in that case, with the amount of talent there, you can make it attractive enough, right?
I mean, Cleveland, this is the funny thing. I mean, you're talking about a team that absolutely surged last season.
Yeah.
Didn't actually win that division, but looked like they were the division winner by the end of the season, right? They
And
looked
then
damn good.
I think they felt vindicated on that by beating Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
Right. After that, you have what is a matter to a fairly mediocre season here. Baker obviously injured, so you've had to throw Keenum out there and stuff like that. So you haven't been able to necessarily rack up the wins like you feel like you should. But you finally, after so long, have a quarterback that's actually fucking done something and actually played pretty well. For the most part. Right now, it's not showing so much. The numbers don't look too good. They have a ranked 25th or something like that pass offense. So, yeah.
25th, 26th, something like that.
Yeah. So, you could point to all those numbers, but for a team that's just not had anything to really go for quite a while, and to finally have a quarterback that's doing something, and for them to just like kind of cut him loose like that and go with Russell coming off of this, I don't know, like Russell came right back off this finger injury or whatever. I don't think he should have. I think he should have taken more of the recommended time. I understand you have a whole fucking team dedicated to repairing and getting you back. I think he only hurt this team as bad as they looked under Geno Smith at times. I don't think it was worth it for him.
Somebody clearly playing hurt. Speaking of, we talked about Baker. Absolutely, yeah. Russell he's nowhere.
And Baker is kind of hurting. Yeah, I mean, like, how much better are you with Case Keenum back there? Probably not. But
none, 0%.
But you're sure as hell hurting yourself, probably. I mean, you got to imagine that shoulder is going to be hurting him if he continues to play throughout the rest of the season. I mean, that's going to be hurting him, obviously, through the entirety of the season. That shoulder shit's not going to go away. He's only going to be taking hits and landing on that shoulder and whatever, So, I mean, yeah, this only really muddies his waters going forward. Because, yeah, I think there is some feeling by... I don't know if Cleveland organization feels this way, but definitely there's a pocket of their fan base that feels like, get Baker the fuck out of here and bring in someone like Russell Wilson. I think Cleveland that was absolutely, as I look at AFC teams, that looks like a team that could be a destination.
Like I said, it's not even because of the injury thing. I think there was a lot of people who still questioned Baker before the injury, right? We've heard it for years now, right? Baker's good, but he's not elite, right? And I do think that's a fair argument to make.
Yeah.
Now, do I think you can win a Super Bowl with a good, not elite quarterback? Absolutely. The Eagles did it 3 years ago with Nick Foles, right? I'll definitely take Baker over Nick Foles.
Yeah. Trent Dilfer has a ring. Come on now.
Brad Johnson.
Okay.
We're gonna go on obscure quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I know. We could start pulling all sorts of random names. Like, that guy played fucking quarterback. Yeah, he barely.
I'll throw out the controversial statement. Terry Bradshaw's got 5 of them.
Yeah.
Sure. Excuse me. We want to talk about average quarterbacks and winning rings.
And then one other team, just throwing that out there, and I think this has been brought up, and they are probably the most wishy-washy quarterback team that there is out there. So, I mean, they can finally kind of put a stamp on it probably by bringing a guy like Wilson in, is the Denver Broncos. Because those guys don't believe in any quarterback, and I think if you bring in a name like that, they got to leave him in for some time, right? Like,
I'll be calling to start
he's the exact opposite
by week 5.
He's oddly enough, he's the exact opposite quarterback of who Elway would want.
There's no way he's going
He
to
wants a
Denver.
6'4" quarterback.
That's just it. He wants the
Pocket
6 foot
quarterback.
4 white dude.
Yeah.
That's just not Russell. I don't think Russell Wilson goes to Denver. I think you have a guy in John Elway who had uh made an exception on his differences for Teddy Bridgewater, and that blew up in his face. And now I think he's going to go back into free agency and look for a guy who more fits what he's looking for.
I can see it. I think Russell is going to have a choice of a few places by the end of this season. I think we'll have a little bit clearer picture by then. But yeah, I think the one thing that is very unlikely to happen is him returning to Seattle in any way, shape, or form.
I think there's a 0% chance he returns to Seattle.
Jeez.
I don't. Here's the. I won't say 0. I'll give it like a 5, right? Because there's always a chance.
Yeah.
But it would be the worst decision he's ever made.
I actually think it's like 25% chance he returns. Like it's a very low chance, but there's a chance that is. Who knows? Who knows by the end of it who's really going to be picking up who, and do you really rate the Bears that much more than Seattle? You definitely do.
100%.
Will he? And I obviously, having played there for so long and like shown the dedication to that franchise, and the fan base has rallied around, and obviously they love him over there. It might be harder. It might be easier said than actually done as far as going away from it. So I think there's still that quarter chance that he sticks around. We'll see.
That's fair. I don't see what would attract Russell Wilson to come back, especially because I'm with you. I don't think Pete Carroll will be back next year either. Right?
No.
And especially without Pete Carroll there, like, who do you bring in to coach that team that attracts Russell Wilson back? Right? Hell, we talked about the Bears and Matt Nagy thing. Maybe Pete Carroll ends up in Chicago. Brings Russell with them, right? Like, I just think once you put an offensive coach in that Chicago job, somebody who looks like they know what they're doing calling offensive plays, I think that job becomes way more attractive.
Right. Yeah. I think Seattle is it's the writing's been on the wall for a bit now, and they've almost had this slow bleed, and now it's been realized with the record and how that team's looked, especially with Russell not in there. And when he has come back with that injury, it hasn't been a good call. So season's not over. Technically, obviously, still mathematically in it and all that, but you got to think that that it's this season's a wash for him, and what does he have to look forward to? I think there's a lot of question marks there for the Seahawks. Well, let's see. Is there any other games you want to take a look at from this past week, or should we jump in to the rest of the slate for this week's games?
I will quickly throw out one team that I don't think we gave enough respect to for what happened last week. Probably the game of last week, actually. I'm surprised we haven't touched on it yet. The Minnesota Vikings getting one on Big Brother, right? I know you look at Kirk Cousins the way that I look at Ryan Tannehill,
Yes.
but credit where it's due. He played a great game. Vikings get a win there. They pull themselves right back into that wild card race in the NFC, and they look kind of good recently.
I mean, you're still talking about a 5-5 Minnesota Vikings team. Kirk Cousins doing what he does, looking good in the regular season, putting up some nice numbers, nice shiny numbers. 341, 3 touchdowns. Still was outdueled by Aaron Rodgers in that game, who threw for 385 and 4 tutties. But yeah, no, I mean, I think this Minnesota Vikings team, obviously, when you have Cook back there, Kirk Cousins, I mean, obviously, weapons like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, as far as receivers, you gotta like that for them. Obviously, with Cook as well, and a defense in general that, I mean, I know they've had some interesting games, but and you still give up 31 to this Green Bay team, and blown coverage. I don't know what the hell defense they were running toward the end there that allowed was it Vontaze Scalding to
Yeah,
just cross
Marcus
over the
Valdez Scantling.
just wide open. Like, how the hell do you let that happen right there? But yeah, battled through and put up the offense on that side. It was pretty impressive for Kirk Cousins there. They have a hell of a game. This is as close to a playoff game as you're going to see in Week 12 of the NFL right now, I think. As they are technically two wild card teams right now. This I'm on the edge of my seat for this Vikings-Niners game coming up. But we'll get to that. We'll get to
that one. That's a very interesting game this week.
Fired up, baby. Oh, we're going to bring out all the gear. I think I got to wear my definitely Kittle jersey. Definitely like Niners hat, Niners beanie probably. Maybe the jacket even goes on if it's cold enough. Yeah, no, I'm fired up. It's going to be I'm really looking forward to that game. But yeah, Minnesota, hell of a win. And still, you're talking about a few games out there as far as actually pulling up to Green Bay. But Green Bay, the defense shows up and then just doesn't for some reason. Like, they are very up and down as far as how they look dominant in some games. And then they just completely lose it the next. It doesn't seem like injury-based too much. It just happens.
Just the season as a whole, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you can honestly look me in the eyes and tell me who you think is a truly great team in the NFL right now, you're lying to me. I don't think anybody can honestly say this team is clearly a great team. This team is clearly the favorite team, right? The closest we
Cards
have
with
is probably
Murray?
the Cardinals.
Cards with Murray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Because their only real question marks recently have been Colt McCoy. Right?
D-Hop too. I guess that kind of
Yeah.
loops in. And they both I don't know if they've missed multiple games. I know recently
They both
obviously.
missed the same number. They both missed the last 3.
Yeah. Damn, yeah, see. That's so they'll
That might
slip
be
a little
the
bit.
only option of this is clearly a great team is the Cardinals when they're healthy.
I'm surprised.
Other than
I'm
that,
I'm surprised you're not rooting for your New England Patriots over there. Putting them up there. The good, not quite the great yet.
I'm not 100% sold on New England as an elite could be a Super Bowl contender team. Not yet.
No. Yeah,
Now,
I mean that's completely fair, of course.
They go through this stretch that we've been talking about for the last couple weeks. It starts now. They get through this stretch. Let's say they win 3 of those games. God forbid 4 of those games. I'll put my stamp on them as elite.
I mean,
but
I'm like, oh, these could be losses here. They keep on fucking proving me wrong, man. That Patriots team can go. That's it's been impressive.
Yeah, well, after this stretch, I think we'll have a really good idea of who the Patriots really are. I still really like them, but I don't know. Like, I'm not sure that they're that level. Now, they beat Tennessee this week. Let's say, beat Buffalo, maybe sneak one past the Colts. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about a team that maybe they are that elite team in the AFC again, and we all thought the hoodie was gone, and now he's back. But I need to see this stretch from the Patriots before I'm really willing to stamp them on the same level that I'm kind of willing to stamp the Cardinals with Murray. They one hiccup aside, that team with Kyler Murray's like pretty much unbeatable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you gotta hope that it's not one of those things. It's not like you feel the pressure to come back a little too soon because your offensive is underperforming. But
from what I have heard from I not like from what I've heard from the Cardinals, obviously, but I've been reading some things about it.
Right.
The Cardinals felt pretty good that he could have played last week if they needed him.
Okay.
But they felt with the bye week coming up, playing a team who hasn't been playing so well, they trusted enough that they could probably pull out that one, and even if they didn't, it wasn't as big of a loss as if they had rushed back Murray. So from what I understand, Kyler was probably good to go last week. Like, kind of thing where, like, if this is a big game or we're close to playoff time, he's playing. But they decided discretion, better part of valor. They have the bye this week. They'll they don't seem to think there's any doubt he'll be back next week, right? Everything I've heard about him is like he's throwing fine, he's running fine, he'll be back. So I actually, if that's the case, smart call by the Cardinals. That's good reading the room, right? They're watching things crumble around them, and they look at it and they go, "We drop this game, it doesn't hurt us as badly as if we bring back Murray when we're 95% sure and he gets hurt again, right?" I think if that's the case, that's great management, great coaching, great player management there. Just recognizing the situation, right? Like, everything's crumbling around them, and they've managed to hold strong with Colt McCoy. They're 2-1 with starting Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're watching everything fall around them, and they went, "No, we're gonna play this as safe as humanly possible."
Oh, and I mean, the play calling, like, goes to show. I mean, Colt McCoy's numbers look good at a glance, maybe, as far as, or, I mean, they are good, obviously. They are good
I was
stats.
going to say 35 of 44 for 328 and 2 touchdowns is good, no
But,
matter
like,
how you want to look at it.
You see how it's like his targets are going, though. He's absolutely, it's keeping it short, keeping it quick.
Slants, check down, short routes. Get the ball out quick.
I'm surprised of how much they're actually utilizing him. I mean, I guess, again, this is a offensive concept as far as the team is concerned that doesn't run the ball that much. And this is kind of going back to what we were talking about a little bit before. This isn't a team that's maybe prepared to run the rock so much. I mean, James Conner did get 21 carries, but compared to the 44 throws that you have Colt McCoy passing for some reason against a very beat-up Seattle team, I think that could have easily been a bunch of less passes that you don't need Colt McCoy to do. But can't really argue, with 328, 2 touchdowns and no picks, maybe a little conservative on the play calling and basically having short passes essentially substitute for maybe more of a run-heavy offense there. So, I mean, you got to give credit to Colt McCoy kind of having probably, his, third rebirth as far as being a quarterback of some sort in the league.
Houston's
so good on him.
The big bucks.
Oh, no.
He's going to get... Houston's going to give Colt McCoy the Sage Rosenfels deal.
I mean, they love Colt McCoy down there in Texas. You get him close enough, right?
You look at the weapons that team has even without D-Hop, I think it'd be silly to go away from the passing game, right? If Colt McCoy's your backup, he's your backup because you're confident enough in him to come in and get the job done, right? If you weren't, you'd have gone out and got another backup.
Well,
right?
Tell that to CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins. Those are quarterbacks we trusted for a period, and they've
Listen, Nick Mullins played a couple of okay.
I love Big Nick Mullins, but goddamn, could he just, when it rained, it poured for that kid. It sucked. And offensive line didn't do him any fucking help. Anybody back there would have been taking those hits. So it was kind of a shame for Mullins in that regard. But he was clearly rattled in games. He couldn't make any passes. So anyways, that was a random Nick Mullins thing.
Yeah, but you look at the Cardinals, right? And you still got Ertz, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, right? Rondale Moore has obviously been big for them, catching the ball at times this year.
Awesome weapon they kind of found right there, Rondale Moore, right?
So you have that many options. Of course, you're going to stick with it.
Yeah.
Right, and they just decided, listen, Colt, we're just going to need you to come in and don't throw the ball away, right? Get it to our guys, and they'll make plays for you. And that's what they've done. Yeah. And listen,
credit to the Cards, offensive play calling, that sort of thing. Really not having to, from a quarterback that I wouldn't compare at all to Kyler Murray, being able to essentially just kind of carry their offense over to Colt McCoy and still pick up wins again against Seattle. How much Seattle probably lose that game to 90% of the league, right? It's the way they've been playing, but yeah, good stuff on the Cards there, keeping it afloat while Murray gets healthy, and that's a great call. Like you said, just taking the week off and going into the bye week for the extra rest, great decision, honestly.
And shout outs to Cliff Kingsbury. We've heard a lot about coaches who come up from college football and suck, right?
Right.
And I feel like they get more focus for some reason because it's easier that way. Oh, it's just harder to coach in the NFL. College guys can't do it.
Right.
You look at Cliff Kingsbury and what he's done with that Arizona offense and that Arizona defense. Because all I heard about Cliff Kingsbury when he came up was Big 12 guy. He can coach offense, but that defense is going to suffer. That defense is going to be horrendous. It hasn't been. It's been good to great at times, right? And Cliff Kingsbury's been able to get that team believing in what he's preaching.
Yeah.
He's essentially playing a Big 12 offense in the NFL, and it works. Yeah. So it's all fun to point and laugh at Jacksonville, and what are you doing hiring college coaches? Urban Meyer can't do it, but you know what? Yeah. The other route to that is Cliff Kingsbury came up from Texas Tech and hasn't missed a step, right? So shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury. I've mentioned it before, big college football fan, so I enjoy watching guys like him come up and succeed in the NFL, and he's doing well. That coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for what's going on in Arizona right now, and I think that's pretty clear to see. Without Kyler Murray going 2-1, nobody would have picked that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Cards team that, like we were saying, probably one of the only teams you could really kind of put their mark on that they're going to be there. Obviously into the playoffs. Definitely, you take a look at their schedule going forward. You wonder where the losses are going to come from. They look like a pretty solid team against a lot of their upcoming games. They will be favored. you know that for sure. So
you look at maybe
how
the
easy
Rams
they could
game,
win. Yeah,
maybe the Cardinals or maybe the Cowboys on the road.
Precisely. Yeah,
and then the Colts on Christmas Day. Those are the only really 3 games that you can look at and go maybe. But I would still favor them at home against the Rams and Colts, even with the way the Colts are playing. I think at home those are big advantages. Cowboys away could be interesting, but I mean the Cowboys are such a Jekyll and Hyde team. Who knows what they're gonna throw out that day? So I'm kind of with you. It's very easy to look at that schedule and see the Cardinals maybe running it and maybe going into the playoffs 15-2.
What a mark right there. I mean, in a 17-game season, that's pretty astounding. I'm honestly glad we got our 2 games as a Niners fan. I'm glad we got our 2 games out with the Cardinals out of the way, so we don't have to face them on our home stretch here.
Especially right now that the Niners look like they finally found some form, right?
Yes.
You get those games that you're probably like, even the way the Niners are playing right now, you probably look at the Cardinals as losses. Right, so you get those out of the way.
We've played the Niners have played. Shanahan's played the Cardinals pretty well. The one X factor being Murray when he's getting out. He has done a lot of damage to the.
They did lose
defense.
one of those games to Colt McCoy.
Yes, no, they did. But I would say that was in the middle of a bad funk for that Niners team in the middle of a 4-game losing streak.
They seem to have figured it out. They seem to have figured it out.
But yeah, let's go ahead and without further ado, let's jump into the slate of games coming up. There's a lot of tough spreads this week, so much so that I definitely took a minute or two for a couple of them, kind of analyzing them back and forth in my head, take a look at injuries and that sort of thing. And I mean, just it's hard to lean one way or another because we've had some teams that really come out and shocked us. This last week, I think Craig doing pretty well, it was looking like, and then we had that last stretch of, I think, 3 of the last 4 games, maybe I think didn't shake out quite Craig's way. They didn't go much better for me either. And actually, you got that in the last minute or last couple minutes swing in that Chargers Pittsburgh game. That was a crazy one. Kills me on that spread though. Fucking, I'm mad because the fucking Steelers all of a sudden like made this a game. And it's like, you screwed the spread up. They were up by 14. You jackasses. Like, I shouldn't give that much of a shit about the game, but I thought I had that one nailed down, and then the Chargers go and kind of blow that lead and screw that spread all up. So good on Pittsburgh. Keep it close. and talk about that Pittsburgh team. We'll go into the first game here. Pittsburgh going into Cincy. Both teams right there in the thick of it in the AFC North. Cincy getting -3.5 at home. Interesting fact on this one: Pittsburgh 5-1 their last six versus Cincy.
They
Dominant
like playing in their
in
division.
yeah. I mean yeah, and not too much of a surprise since he probably doesn't have good records against a lot of teams within the last three seasons. Only kind of within this last season have they shown the ability to put up wins. But I kind of like this line at home for Cincy. I think 3.5 starts to get right there in that sweet spot. Pittsburgh is such a middling team right now. Despite what that recent within three seasons record says, I I don't like them over the Cincy team, and I think the Cincy team probably has enough to go and get this win by more than 3.5. So my pick is Cincy on this one at home.
So I went kind of back and forth on this one reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I did have similar feelings, and I still have similar feelings about Pittsburgh to be here. I don't think they're that great, but I have started to have similar feelings about Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I know they're coming off of a win, but I don't know. I just don't know what the Cincinnati team is. Uh, for me, what swayed it is TJ Watt's back, right? TJ Watt's back, full practice this week. He's playing this weekend. That's a big boost for that Pittsburgh defense, which was already pretty good without him. Right? You bring back TJ Watt. You're playing a team that you've always big brothered, right? Uh, I just think Pittsburgh finds a way to pull this one out. I not just keep this thing within 3 points, but I actually think Pittsburgh wins this outright. Um, I I like that Pittsburgh defense more than I like Cincinnati's offense, is what this comes down to.
It'll be
But
interesting with excuse me. With a guy like I guess it looks like Joe Hayden's scheduled to be out. I'm wondering how their secondary is really going to do if Burrow can start getting it going again with Jamar. Uh, I wonder how susceptible this defense is to getting lit up here. They have generally played pretty well, and obviously you do like Watt coming back there. And yeah, a Pittsburgh team that was looking kind of sloppy there, definitely in the beginning of the season, had rallied off good 4 wins before they take that tie game against Detroit, which was a shame for them. I could see definitely Pittsburgh being there. I really like this. I really like this Cincinnati team as far as when they have been playing well, they've looked fantastic. So after a nice win against that Raiders team that looked oddly enough great yesterday, right yesterday. Yeah, give me the Bengals still. I like them, but yeah, Pittsburgh outright.
tough one.
I like
Tough one.
that. I like that. Not surprised we might be split on that one. That's a tough game. Let's see. Going into our next one, we're looking at we got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay going into Indy to play the Colts. Colts getting 3 at home here. You're talking about a Tampa Bay team that has been banged up, slipping a little bit. Still a 7-3 team though. Colts team that looked pretty bad early and now looking pretty damn good as of late. 3 points there. What do you got on this one? What are you thinking?
So a lot of my thinking comes down to two guys on Tampa Bay, both of whom have participated in very limited practice this week, and that's Devin White and Vita Vea.
Yeah.
Right? If those two guys aren't playing, if they don't have Vita Vea and Devin White, how does that team stop Jonathan Taylor? Right? Like this could be another 185 if Vita Vea and Devin White aren't in there. That's a big part of their run defense just gone.
Right.
Right? And Indy at home, Jonathan Taylor running the way he is, Tampa Bay potentially missing the guys who would shut down that run defense if they could.
Yeah.
I like Indy on this one without those guys. I'm taking a bit of a risk here because I know both of them have done some practicing this week, but it doesn't sound particularly encouraging. They're both listed as game time decisions. That's usually not a great sign. Kyler Murray's been a game time decision for the last 3 weeks. Usually when it's game time decision, you're putting the hands together and praying that they'll play. I I don't think Tampa Bay's offense is going to be able to do enough if they don't have those guys to mitigate what Jonathan Taylor is going to do to their defense.
And the thing with a guy like Vita Vea too is like that worries me with the knee. Dude's explosive as hell.
Yeah.
You know, he's popping off that knee for sure. And if he's really hurting in practice, even if he does get in there, you got to figure it's pretty limited reps. He's probably getting rotated out. You are talking about the number one rush defense in Tampa Bay, but yeah, that's not the number one rush defense when you're talking about those two guys out. And they have kind of played some cupcake run offensive teams.
Yeah.
So it's helped kind of pad that stat a little bit for them. Already a banged up secondary for them as well. So you got that adding on to it. Yeah, I love Indy in this game, actually. I'm a little surprised, given everything and seeing how the teams have kind of been playing lately, that Indy still is getting 3 points here at home. Very surprised by that.
A little bit disrespect here, I feel. I thought this line would be, I get why Tampa Bay gets the line, right? I feel like Vegas is even scared to bet against Tom Brady these days.
Right.
But I figured this was an easy, like, +1 one way or the other, right? The way Tampa Bay's been playing recently, too, let's face it, it's not like they're coming in here firing on all cylinders. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I can honestly see Indy winning this one going away if Vea and White are not playing, and certainly if they're not at 100%, because I just don't see how that Tampa Bay run defense stops him without them.
Yeah.
I think Vita Vea is such a big part of that run defense. Maybe the most underrated part of that defense, because, a lot of guys get a lot of love on that defense, and there's a lot of good players there, but what Vita Vea does for that run defense is make sure that middle just isn't an option, right? When he's on, you cannot go through there, right? He forces guys to the outside. He forces things to the outside where they have a lot of skill and a lot of talent, a lot of guys who make plays out there. And without him, I don't know how you stop Jonathan Taylor with the run he's on right now.
I mean, yeah, I think you're talking about a Tampa Bay team that, yeah, they took out the Giants pretty handedly in their previous game. Daniel Jones just kind of giving everything away in that game as well. And then the Washington game, Heineke showing some stuff out in that game, but that was surprising just given that they took that loss off the bye, and then before that bye, losing to a Trevor Siemian-led New Orleans team. So, yeah, I think this Tampa Bay team is... Oh, man, they wish they had another bye week because they are banged up. And, yeah, I think this is just the offense that will do pretty well against Tampa Bay.
It just seems like a bad timing for this matchup, right? You'd figure it'd be a little bit different if that defense was a little bit healthier, right? Missing Ali Marpet, it sounds like he might not be playing either. Is going to be a big loss for that offensive line for Tampa Bay, right? Obviously, no Antonio Brown. I will say, Quentin Nelson could be a huge loss for that offensive line for Indy if he doesn't play, right? Like, the things Quentin Nelson does on that line it's a big deal. And again, we're talking about interior versus interior, right? If they don't have Vita Vea, you can get Quentin Nelson into that second level really easily on whoever their backup nose tackle is, it could be bad. So Quentin Nelson plays, that makes it even worse. But I don't like. I'm not saying if Quentin Nelson doesn't play, it changes my mind in any way. That Tampa Bay defense just too banged up to deal with what Indianapolis is bringing in, which is probably the scariest running back in the NFL right now.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor can go. That dude is an absolute beast. So, yeah, going, I guess, yeah, both of us there on the Colts. This is the game I couldn't pick because I was kicking it back and forth, and it's because it's just one of those games. You talk about teams that are so middling, and definitely some weird situations, especially at quarterback for both teams, back and forth, and who the hell do they even believe in, that sort of thing. You got the Carolina Panthers going into Miami. Miami getting +2 on this one. Miami is looking good as of late. 3-game win streak, right? Very surprising for this team. Carolina, you kind of have the pop, the hype of Cam coming back and kind of breathing some life back into this team after the short-lived days of Sam Darnold. The 2 points almost scares me. Like this game could just be a 1-point game. It is going to be. I think they're just so middling as far as the this Miami defense. Like from what they showed last year, they have been horrendous in games and great in games at points. I really like how they've obviously been playing lately. You talk about giving up 9, 10, and 17 points, and the 17 points was against the Jets. But yeah, kind of that shutdown. Maybe I think I'm kind of hung up. I'm as well as they played against that Baltimore team. I gotta believe in this Miami team. Now that I'm talking it to myself, I'm gonna take Miami here at home.
You talked yourself into doing the exact opposite of me.
Yes.
I got Carolina in this game. I got the Panthers here. That Panthers defense is really good.
Yeah.
And I still have yet to see the difference making ability of Tua. Right? Like against a really good defense, can you go out there and win your team a game? I still haven't seen it yet. And there's still some buzz around the Panthers that Cam's back. He wasn't fantastic last game, but they were in it the whole way. Against the emails, and I think this week, I know the Dolphins are on a bit of a run right now, but I don't know. I think this Panthers defense is the X factor in this game. I think they shut down Miami's offense, and they don't need a ton to get past them at that point. You still got the CMC running factory back there. I don't love this matchup for Miami. I actually kind of like what Miami's been doing recently, but I just think this matchup is bad for them.
I think if they didn't have this game at home, it'd be a little different. I think this will actually be a factor for them playing at home. Miami has notably been a tough ground to play at. It's not like Carolina isn't a hot mess during some parts of the year, that sort of thing. But it's kind of weird during right now. You're talking late November. What kind of weather they're going to be getting out there in Miami? That's going to be interesting. And I think in general, this what's kind of a shame really is that I really like if Tua was in there with his full repertoire of weapons. I'd like them a little bit more. I'm very surprised by how they have done as of late because I like Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, with Waddle in there. I like a lot of those weapons that they have. Gaskin has been decent enough as far as running for them. Malcolm Brown, unfortunately, being injured right now. I think it looks like they have actually off of the from Houston picked up Phillip Lindsay, which would be maybe a nice little piece to their running backs. But I think Carolina right now, it's like I hate to say it, I think the defense is going to. I think it's a good defense. I absolutely think it's a good defense, but I just wonder. I worry about that team's offense between the 20s. and how well they're able to kind of sustain drives. And if they get into the kind of the hole in Miami, and how much pressure can this Miami defense start to pick up? Because they have started to pick it back up. They're getting a little bit better as far as getting back to the quarterback. Can they get to Cam early? And I think if they get to Cam early, I think that will that could that could make this team look way better. They'll probably help two out as far as field positioning game. I don't know. I think Tua is a he's right there as far as I think he's a pretty serviceable quarterback. I think he could help this team pick up a game against a Carolina team that has that nice little surge from getting Cam here. But I really like how Miami's been playing lately. There's a reason they've been picking up those wins.
I said it coming into this, right? There's so many games this week that are very tough to call, and this was absolutely one of them, right? Like, it's a game with a surprising amount of playoff implication. More so on the Panthers side. The Dolphins might be a bit far back in the AFC, but I mean, it's a very interesting game, and it's one of those games that could be sneaky good, but that Panthers defense I just like. And I think we might see a reappearance of Tua turn the ball over. So I don't know. We'll see.
Some potential there. I think Tua is he'll be pretty like I don't think they're gonna put him in too many positions to make mistakes. That would be my assumption going into this one, but that remains to be seen. We'll see if they get behind early. I mean, obviously, yeah. If Cam start lighting them up and all of a sudden, Miami starts getting into panic mode, that game can go downhill for them very quick because Panthers will hop all over it as far as opportunities. If they are starting to stretch the field and they become predictable, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the case. I think this is going to be a very kind of ballad out game, and I like Miami with the +2 to be able to edge that out. Going into our next one, this one was very interesting to me because this was totally dictated on the injury report going into this. I was very surprised by the initial line on this, and then kind of reading into it, I kind of see now why. Tennessee going into New England to play the Patriots. Patriots getting -7 at home. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I know this Patriots team has looked good. This is still a team that's 7-4 compared to an 8-3 Tennessee team. I know you don't have Derrick Henry, but it should be fine, or it should be closer than that. And then I'm seeing AJ Brown's out, and I'm seeing McNichols is out already with Henry, already with Julio. Who the hell is Tannehill going to throw the ball to? And he's already had a very middling season right now. He's like, I think, one touchdown better than interceptions on the season.
And
I talked myself into it. I hate to do it because I don't want to see the Patriots doing well, but I actually think the Patriots fucking destroy Tennessee in this game and beat them by more than 7.
So you only scratched the surface of that Titans injury report. Guard Nate Davis is out. Ola Adieni could be out. Jaylen Brown could be out. Elijah Molden could be out. They are banged up. Now, I know the Patriots have a lot of guys questionable, but all 9 of them practiced today. And it sounds pretty good. The Patriots have found something new recently, and his name is Ramondre Stevenson. And the way they've been running the ball recently with Ramondre Stevenson has changed the game as to how they can open up the field. That Tennessee defense is good. Don't get me wrong. But that Tennessee offense without Derrick Henry is not. And with all these injuries, it only gets worse, right? Like, the Texans defense made Tannehill look silly. What's this freaking Patriots defense going to do to him, right? -7's a lot, and it bothers me a lot, but I'm with you. I think New England has big blowout potential on them here. I said it when Henry went down. I don't know what this Tennessee team is without him. That defense looked like they might be able to keep them in games, and they definitely are. But man, if you're getting flummoxed by the Texans defense, I got bad news for you. Bill Belichick's got a game plan, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this could be ugly.
Yeah, this could be, and very obviously surprising. I think people will see the record, and injuries can get any team. But I think right now, like Tennessee's going to be going through it. This is a really bad time for them to have this game. Really bad time. Uh, you would just you'd hope you had a few more weapons potentially offensively to still be fairly effective. Obviously, New England's defense has shown their ability. They've been able to flex their muscles a couple times. And yeah, Mac Jones isn't going to probably lose you a game. It seems like that kid's pretty solid as far as not making the mistake that's going to kill you. So yeah, I like New England despite that crazy spread. I thought for sure when I first saw that spread, I'm like, yeah, give me the Titans. They had a bad one, yeah, but they could bounce back. But seeing all those injuries and just the timing of it, yeah, I get it. I got to still give it to New England there.
It would be a crooked score there.
All right. Now this one I'm fired up for because I think I'm hopping on the bagwagon. Sirianni, let's go, baby. I love it. Philadelphia Eagles going into New York to face the Giants, and Giants getting 3.5 at home. Give me the Eagles. Got to ride that train while it's going. They finally figured out that they have some running backs and an offensive line, and they are handing the rock off and letting Hurts do his thing a little bit. And the Giants team, yeah, they came off probably the worst performance they could have had. Daniel Jones looked garbage in that last game. I have no reason to think that Philly won't just demolish the Giants away right now.
100%. 100%. I'm right there with you. I think too the Eagles are going to be a little bit motivated watching the Cowboys lose on Thursday and looking at that division and now going, "Hold on. We're all of a sudden in the division race." And I think the Giants stink. So I think this is a combination of a pretty good Eagles team and a pretty bad Giants team meeting each other at the wrong time for the Giants. The Eagles are going to do what they've done the last few weeks, and that's just run the ball all over a defense that doesn't like teams who run the ball. I Another one that I could very easily see being a crooked score by the end, but the Philadelphia Eagles will win at least by a score. Like they will win this game fairly comfortably, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Jordan Howard going to be out, listed as out in this upcoming game. So that's going to hurt them a little bit as far as that backfield, but they have competent backs. You obviously have Sanders, who's just come off IR in the last couple weeks here. You got guys like Boston Scott back there. So I think they'll be fine as far as the actual backs are concerned. Yeah, it's like one of those things early on, the record-wise, probably wouldn't have given much credit to the team in general as the Eagles have been, but they definitely have pieces there. I mean, a defense that could keep them hanging around games. You gotta love how they. I mean, the Denver game, I guess, was kind of the real show because that's a pretty dominant win you have on the road there. I really like that New Orleans win as well. I mean, again, you're talking about a Trevor Siemian-led New Orleans Saints. Maybe you shouldn't put too much credit into that, but before that, kept it close against the Chargers, smacked down the Lions. Like this Eagles teams look a little bit more like a team that in that NFC. Why not the Eagles being able to make the playoffs
100%.
amongst that? So absolutely, I like this Eagles team right now. They're surging well. This is right at the time they need to be doing that. and absolutely they're looking at playoff spots right now. So I expect them to come out firing.
Also, one more thing with that injury report. We talked about Jordan Howard being out, and that's a bit of an uh-oh for the Eagles. They got coverage. Giants are missing Sterling Shepard, Caden Smith, Kyle Rudolph, Kadarius Toney, John Ross, and Saquon Barkley, both game time decisions. Holy shit, they don't have receivers.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Right?
going pretty deep in the depth chart right there. Yeah,
Oh my lord, I, 5 of those people I named are ball catchers.
yeah.
The other one is Saquon Barkley. Like, they're they again look for potentially crooked score in that game.
So both of us like the Eagles there. Nice. I'll let you lead off this one. Right off the bat. Your Atlanta Falcons. Going into Jacksonville. Take on the Jags. Jags getting +2 at home. I feel pretty good about the way I'm leaning on this one. I'm interested in what you're thinking on this.
Cordero Patterson sounds iffy. He might be able to go. Deion Jones, same thing, a little bit iffy. Um, Hypothetically, the Falcons should beat the Jaguars here. Um, Jacksonville's not a great team, and they'll be without Shaq Griffin too, which that could lead to an interesting game for Kyle Pitts because a lot of teams have been marking Kyle Pitts with a corner. Because let's face it, Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver who pretends that he's a tight end. Um, I'm going with the Falcons. I do think they will end up winning that game. I don't think the Jags have anything really. Poor Trevor Lawrence looks like uh just looks like a sitting duck back there at times, and you know we still have a quarterback who is competent, right? I've been down on Matt Ryan. I've said it before. He's not the same guy he once was, but he's certainly good enough to win us a game against the Jaguars, I think.
Yeah, actually, Ryan doing all right. Yards game. You're talking about just under 250. I think a lot of that offense, obviously, yeah. You talk about Patterson dictating that. James Robinson, obviously, on the Jag side, being a nice little surprise for them, able to help out Lawrence there. But what happens so often to them is they fall behind quick, and their offense isn't sustainable to be able to keep up because their defense can't keep up. I really think that this Falcons team, and this is kind of a question I'll put to you. I had a note here, and we were talking about this before. So this Atlanta team looks destined for 500, and just about right around 500. And we've talked about damn near 500 in the NFC is damn near a playoff spot, but could be out. Close. A lot of tiebreakers and stuff to be decided at that point, obviously. Do you think right now this Atlanta team, they pick up a win here, they go 5-6, still viable? They can make the run and make the playoffs?
Yes, because of who they play. So they really only have 2 what you would call hard games left. And that's 3. The Bucks, the Niners, and the Bills. Yeah. Right? Beyond that, we've talked about the Panthers. If anything, we're talking about 2 teams that are looking at their trajectories very evenly. The Jaguars, the Lions, and the Saints.
Yeah.
Could they make the playoffs in the NFC going 4-3 down the stretch here and finishing, I think that put them 9-8? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, I'm taking a look ahead on this. I don't know. I mean, depending on how they look and the health of these guys going forward, Tampa Bay is in question. Honestly, I feel even Tampa Bay is a game that the Falcons could pull off and win here on the road. How much credit, like how much, spread wise and, you know, percentage wise, yeah, Tampa Bay is going to be favored for sure in that game at home. But things could line up just right, as far as if they're able to take advantage of a still beat up Tampa Bay team. I don't see any reason they couldn't potentially win that game. And yeah, I mean, they're going to be slugging it out with some teams that are right there in the thick of it. If we're kind of going by what we're saying, maybe Carolina's in that. Maybe on the outside. San Francisco, I'm seeing as absolutely being in that, of course, being me. And then New Orleans, yeah, probably they're probably slipping. That's probably not as vital of a game at the end of the season. But I don't know. Saints, I don't think Saints would mind playing spoiler and ruining the Falcons' chances at the end of the season.
Oh, they would love to do it.
So exactly. So you have that situation too for a New Orleans team that could not be or might not even be in the playoff picture at all. They still might be like, now we're going to screw over the Falcons too and maybe take one right there at home. So
that Niners-Falcons game could be fascinating coming down the stretch.
I think because me and the boys might be trying to get to that game actually.
Oh man, I wish.
Oh yeah, baby. It's in the city. I love it, man. I want to go. I want to.
Tiebreakers galore with both those teams being in roughly the same spot at the moment, right? I think the Niners are 5-5. Right, so
5-5. Yep.
Right, they've had their bye. The Falcons haven't. Essentially similar records, right? That we talked so much about how tiebreakers are going to play in this NFC, where everybody kind of looks middling, and that could be a big game as far as a tiebreaker goes. If we are talking about Atlanta potentially being a playoff team, which they could very well be, like I said, you look at that schedule. 4-3 is right there.
Who the fuck knows in the NFC? Really though,
it's just
it's so up there. I mean, we were just talking about the Eagles being a good team.
I've been on record saying I think there's a chance 8-9 this year might be enough to get you into the playoffs in the NFC.
I'm not quite there, but I think 9-8 will be in the conversation.
9-8, I'm 100% sold is enough.
Damn,
I'm
crazy.
Still not 100% sold that 8-9 might not be enough to get you there.
Yeah.
It's that last playoff spot in the NFC is going to be interesting because I do think we are now looking at this point at one playoff spot there. I thought for a while it was going to be two. Obviously with the team that doesn't come out of the NFC West being the top wild card. But I really am feeling quite bullish on the Eagles right now. I think being in the division they're in too, which is pretty bad.
Right.
I think they got a chance of racking up a few wins and really potentially putting themselves into that 10-win conversation where you're now not really a part of that pack anymore. So I do think that group that's there, that Vikings, Niners, Panthers, Falcons, that group is probably fighting for one spot.
Yeah. I mean, I see the Rams, as much as they've kind of had some slipping as of late, they haven't quite gelled. I think Robert Woods going down actually meant a lot more for this team than maybe was initially.
Big.
Vaughn, I don't think it's still, he's not quite maybe on the same page. He's been...
No, and Odell's clearly not there yet either as far as timing and stuff like that.
But I still think they're probably that top wild card team. As we talked, Card's probably the only team we really think is dominant there. And I still think a third, which would be the Niners, NFC West team is able to sneak in there. It's all about that other team and who's able to make it in. And I don't see why not the Eagles. You take a look at their remaining schedule. Dallas at the end. That's about it.
And
everybody else
that
they
Dallas
should.
at the end game could be very interesting. If we are right about this Eagles team and they might be on a run here,
Yeah,
that could be deciding a lot more than a wild card spot. That could be a potential game for who wins the NFC East.
yeah, and they have the Washington emails. They got them twice in the last 4 weeks there, so that's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Because Washington, at times they've been looking good, and again another spoiler factor. Absolutely, they could
Yeah.
really ruin the chances for the Eagles here as much as we've been kind of pushing them. Um, there's a chance that could get spoiled there by a surprising at times Washington team for sure. Let's go on. Let's see. So you got Atlanta in that one, correct?
Yeah.
Got that.
Yeah, I
Make
don't
sure.
I don't think Jacksonville has a path to winning that game.
This one, oh man, this is gonna be a hard one to watch.
Thankful.
This is the tank bowl we talked about. This is the thing that I hate. I think both these teams will actually come out firing. I don't see any reason that
Why not? You're 2 and
we
8.
Tyrod wants to come out there. I know Bob Sala wants to look a little bit better. This is a win that could look good for your team going forward. We got the New York Jets going into Houston to play the Texans. Houston getting -2.5 at home. Obviously, coming off that very surprising victory that they had against the Tennessee, of course. New York Jets, after a surprising win against Cincinnati, rallied off 3 pretty bad-looking losses. My feeling initially, I mean, this team's a little different with Tyrod back there. I like the Texans at home at 2.5 points. I think they could definitely win this game by a field goal for sure.
I know Zach Wilson will be back. I know there's a lot of people who think that changes this line a little bit. I don't. I don't think Zach
Right.
Wilson's shown me anything this year. And that's not on Zach Wilson. That's on the fact that this Jets team sucks. And I don't care who you put at quarterback. They're not winning much.
No.
Not with the pieces they have. Right? You could throw Peyton Manning back there if you wanted. They might make the playoffs. Right? Like,
I mean, and their top wide receiver, their best weapon right now, is questionable for this game. It's not looking good for the Jets to have anything going
yep.
in their favor. Zach Wilson back there, like Davis Mills has looked better than Zach Wilson this season. Like, so put a better quarterback than Davis Mills on the other side, and give
Yeah.
me Zach Wilson on that side, and I think
Yeah.
Texans should take this at home easily.
Yeah. Again, that's not me putting a knock out there on Zach Wilson. I actually liked him at BYU. I think there's still some potential there, but this Jets team's got nothing. You might go, well, this Houston team doesn't have much either. Yeah, but they got more than the Jets.
Yeah, they got just a bit more than Jets, and I mean, yeah, I think Tyrod is he's the kind of guy that could absolutely command you to a win against this team. This
Oh,
Jets
he's the
team.
Jets, 100%.
Yeah, I this is, we were talking about this before. We were talking about this with Dan Campbell situation. I don't know if it's the same situation for the Jets. For some reason, I feel like Campbell's on a different leash than Saleh is right now. But I feel bad for Saleh because I know he has some skills, but I mean this is gonna be these are gonna be rough waters for a couple of years if they even give him a couple of years, right?
Two reasons I think the Lions situation is different.
Right.
One, the Lions are trying to change their culture right now. Right? The Lions have more issues than just what's going on the field right now. Their ownership has been a mess. They haven't been able to find anybody who's been able to do that general manager role well. They've been a middling team for 20 years. So I think right now they're more looking to shift the culture a little bit in Detroit, right? And I think they like what Dan Campbell represents. He goes out there and he's fired up and his team is fired up for him and they play their asses off. Yeah, sure. They don't win. But you know what? They fucking try. And
Yes.
I know that sounds ridiculous for us
No.
talking about professional athletes, but when you look at that Detroit team and how bad they are talent-wise and how hard they try, there's something to be said about what you're trying to accomplish in Detroit as
No.
far as that culture shift we've talked about. From middling, mediocre nothings to, potentially a place that, okay, we're going to fight, we're going to make it a dogfight, we're going to give it our all. And when we start to bring talent into this team, now we can start to really push back, right? The Jets, their give a shit level this year has been uh, give and take at best.
No.
Um, there's been a lot of games where the Jets go out there and they just look like they could care less, right? Everybody's going out there to get their personal numbers to get their contract, right? It doesn't look like a team that's going out there caring about winning. You see guys getting picks when they're down by 3 scores and they're running off to the sidelines, high fiving and pumped up and everything, and it's like, no, that's the time where you need to be fired up. You got to get to your offense's face and go, I got you this, now let's fucking go. You see the Lions do that all the time, right? Something big happens and it's not a moment of celebration, it's a moment of like, let's keep going, let's build on this. The Jets don't care enough to do that. Right. I think it's a completely different situation because of what the Jets have shown me, which is they don't care.
One interesting little caveat. I think this is the worst game for Wilson to come back into as well. You're talking about a quarterback that has thrown 9 picks on the season already in fairly limited time, right? Has been out. A Houston Texans team that is actually fourth in the league with 13
Yep.
interceptions. They are opportunistic. They suck in every other regard, but they can get an interception or two. I think these DBs are potentially going to feast a little bit on a already not so great Wilson coming back all of a sudden into this. He's going to be seeing real reps. Uh, I yeah, I don't see anything that really gives me confidence this Jets team is going to do anything, but um, you know, just does not look good out there. Does not look good. This is as weird as it is. I think a fairly dominant win by Houston on this one.
Yeah, those 2-8s are not the same 2-8,
No.
right? Like the Texans with Tyrod Taylor are not 2-8 right now, right? Like they had to play Davis Mills for almost the entire year. I think
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor's in there. This is not a 2-8 team. It's probably closer to a 500 team.
Question: This is something to where I think both teams, and granted, maybe to varying degrees, one probably looks like a playoff team, another's maybe a little bit more of a middling team. Um, the difference from Jameis Winston to Trevor Simeon bigger than the difference from Tyrod Taylor to Davis Mills. Which one? Which one? Where do you have more fall off as far as like wins for a team?
I would say you have more fall off from Jameis Winston to Trevor Simeon just because of the way Jameis was playing this year before he left. Right. Simeon to me, very similar quarterback to Davis Mills. Very similar quarterback as far as talent. But Jameis Winston was actually playing really well this year.
Yeah.
Wasn't turning the ball over the way we're used to seeing with him. Was actually throwing the ball with relative confidence. Had a lot of touchdowns and not a lot of picks. Was winning the Saints games based on how he was playing. Tyrod Taylor, I don't think was gonna make the Texans a playoff team
No.
or even really in the playoff race. I do think Jameis Winston makes the Saints a playoff team.
Sure.
And that's where I think the difference is here, right? Not that I'm saying that I think Semien is worse than Davis Mills or even that Jameis Winston is so much better than Tyrod Taylor. But just off of the form that Jameis Winston was showing and where the Saints looked like they were going before he got hurt, I'm gonna have to go with the drop off to Trevor Simeon. To
Yeah.
me, Trevor Simeon, Davis Mills, interchangeable. Throw them on the other team, you're getting the same results. They're bad,
So
right?
so it's kind of interesting. I think actually in a per win basis, I mean Trevor Simeon has actually gone out there and won games for New Orleans here. Oddly enough, as much as it has been a fall off, and I think Winston does get you a couple more there. And I do agree. Winston makes that a playoff team. I still think Tyrod in there makes this Texans team like 6-11 and 7-10, something like that, right? So I think he gets you a handful more wins there. I think Winston gets you maybe one or so less. But yeah, I would say these things are fairly interchangeable. I thought it was that's just something that popped in my mind. And like that's a very like those teams are on different levels, obviously. One you would actually expect to make the playoffs, one not. But I think definitely that similar situation to where you have a Winston, Tyrod, like careers that have been unfortunate to say the least, right? I mean, definitely some
really, though.
rough waters for both, exactly, and for different reasons. It's just kind of interesting how I think both those quarterbacks get you more wins, but like in different ways. And
Yeah.
I think you pull up a bad team a bit more to a mediocre team than you pull up a mediocre team to being a good playoff team, basically.
Yeah, they're both quarterbacks I'd put on the same level, which would be the good NFL quarterback can win you games,
Yeah.
probably not winning you a Super Bowl or anything crazy like that.
Right.
Right? Whereas Trevor Siemian and Davis Mills are both quarterbacks I put on the same level, which is trash can.
Damn.
Get in the bin.
We'll see. I mean, Trevor Simeon.
He beat the Patriots. That's the only game that they've won with Trevor Siemian.
Yeah.
They lost to the Falcons. They lost
Or-
to the Titans.
You mean, Bucks, right?
Yeah, the Bucks. Yeah, they beat the Bucks.
The Tom Brady's, basically. That's what I know you're really thinking, right?
Yeah, they beat the Brady's.
They beat the Brady's.
And then they lost to the Falcons, lost to the Titans, and obviously lost last week to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston wins you 2 of those 3 games. I don't think Jameis Winston wins you the
Fair.
Eagles game the way the Eagles ran on that Saints defense. Jameis Winston does win you the Falcons game, and he does win you the Titans game, I think.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty fair. Okay.
Right, and then right now, instead of a team who looks like they're very much on the outskirts of the playoffs, we could be talking about the Saints team as one of the team. Like we could be talking about the NFC wildcard races. If the Eagles pull away, this race is over, right? Instead of really looking at it as even if the Eagles do what we think they do, there's still a spot there for the taking. So it's interesting, right? I think the Saints, because the Saints have more of a team, the drop off from Jameis to Siemian hurts them more.
Yeah. There's something to be said about both sides, and when you talk about playoffs, that matters a lot, right? Instead of just going 6 wins instead of 3 or something like that. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think like I said, I think the Texans are probably like a 4 or 5 win team with Tyrod, right? So they'd be better than where they are now, but we certainly wouldn't be thinking of them as legitimate playoff threats.
Well, we'll go into a team that, since they don't know what the fuck they're doing at quarterback at any given point, who knows what kind of wins they could have given one person being in and versus another. We got the Denver Broncos hosting the LA Chargers.
Can I say something really quick?
Yes.
I don't know what the line is. Give me the Chargers, whatever the line is.
Well, you're getting Denver is plus 2.5 here at
That's
home.
not even close to enough. I
will mark LAC for Craig.
I've said from the start of the season, even when they were 4-0, this Broncos team is a lie.
Yeah.
They're not really that good. And Teddy Bridgewater is somebody who I used to think of, by the way, in that Winston, Taylor, Kirk Cousins mold, right? Of good quarterback will win you some games, probably not winning a Super Bowl with him. He's not that guy. He's a step below that guy. Teddy check down, can't get it done. It speaks a lot to how little they think of Drew Lock, by the way, and how bad he's looked in practices, that he can't even see game time behind Teddy Bridgewater, who can't do anything right for that offense. The defense is just okay. It doesn't blow you away in any one way. I think the Chargers have had their peaks and valleys this year for sure, but I think Herbert will do more than enough for the Chargers to win this game relatively comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, see, this is the one thing. I think the Chargers, obviously, they have been disappointing for most of this season. I think even right now at 6-4, kind of disappointing for how this team should have been looking. This kind of, we said it last week. This division kind of was for its taking for a bit there. Um, and you had the Raiders kind of leading them, the Chargers a little bit behind. It was like, oh, the Chiefs they're not nearly what they were before, and they just kind of let these things slip. And all of a sudden, you got a Denver team that, oddly enough, at 5-5, it just like they look like the distant fourth for records that don't show that at all. 5-5 is, like you said, that's kind of a fugazi. It's nice, but like the way that they have rallied off the wins in the early season. Nice little 3-game winning streak there.
Against
Teams that they should beat.
they beat the Giants, the Jets, and
That's Jacks.
the Jaguars. Yeah,
Probably three of the worst teams in the league for sure. Teams they should beat.
right.
And they
they're
look
all
fairly good. They look fairly good in doing all those. Like none of those were like
yeah.
close games, right? So like you just did what you should do, right? Tough loss against Baltimore, but okay, that's a Ravens team that at times has shown they can go. Then it's like that Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh was not looking good at the beginning of the season, so that was like that's a rough one to take. But all right, Pittsburgh, they finally got one back. I think the writing was literally on the wall. That Raiders game that they dropped, they were a little bit back and forth there, but yeah, for the most part, Raiders kind of dominated that one. And then this latest Philly game,
Yeah.
if they were able to win that game, this gets really interesting for them. But you take a look at their schedule to end the season. They have a cupcake Detroit game in the middle of December. Otherwise, it's all winning teams, most in their division. It's tough to say for a 500 team that's really not that far out. It's hard to say they have any damn chance of getting wins toward the end of the season here, except for the Lions team, maybe. Right? And then that was one.
Week. Yeah, I think I said it last week. I thought the Broncos were going 6 wins this year. Looking at the rest of their schedule, I don't know.
Kind of lines up.
I think what's really unfortunate for the Broncos is that the way that this has happened this year, all these good teams around them are going to be nowhere close to clinched by this point. All these games are going to matter for those teams, right? Because they could have made their season look a lot better and potentially even been in that playoff conversation had the Chiefs done what we expected the Chiefs to do, had the Chargers done what we expected the Chargers to do, and by those last 2 games, probably have been clinched, right? I think if you had come into the season, right, the Chargers and Chiefs, you would have expected to be clinched by that point, right? They're going to the playoffs. It's done. They're going to rest some guys, keep them healthy, get ready to go. Broncos sneak out a couple wins in there, beat that Lions team, get this... Because, let's face it, they've done mostly what we would expect them to do. The Cowboys game is a little bit of an anomaly, but that's more on the Cowboys being really out of sync than it is on the Broncos doing any one thing in particular. I think you watch that game, it's not like the Broncos defense was stifling. Dak had a lot of open throws that he just missed. Right? It was an anomaly game. I think outside of that, all these games, scores and everything, are exactly what you would have expected them to be for the Broncos. I think the Broncos schedule just lined up where they had this really easy part of their schedule early, and now reality's about to smack them in the face, and it sucks for the Broncos. Because, like I said, season breaks down... Like, the Broncos could have looked at this season and go, the season breaks down the way we expect it to. Chiefs and Chargers are going to be clinched by this point. Might be playing some backup teams. Maybe sneak out a couple wins the last 2 weeks of the season and backdoor our way into the playoffs. That ain't happening now. Chargers and Chiefs are both going to need those games. They ain't resting anybody. It's gonna be ugly, I think, down the stretch for the Broncos. It's just a murderer's row of games. And honestly, that's the price you pay, right? Big ups to the Broncos for kind of doing what they had to do to keep themselves in this conversation to this point, but reality's about to step in.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the yeah Bridgewater has he's I guess you would say underperformed definitely. There is I wonder how much like there was a time there was absolutely I think they had a window to where if they picked up a really I think if they just pick up maybe like one win in that 4 game loss stretch, they were able to find a way to get a win in there against a good team. You would feel a lot better about this Broncos team, but the way they just stunk for that stretch right there, and they've bounced back a little bit. Um, but yeah, that is the taking a look at that end of the schedule. How many teams they're going to be playing that are really going to be going for it? It's tough to see the wins there.
For me, it's not even a win in that streak. It's just a win that I look at and go, now that changes my mind about you. Right? Now that win shows me something that I haven't seen before. Right? I haven't seen that from the Broncos yet. 4 of their 5 wins are against pretty poor teams. The Cowboys game, as I said, if you watch that game, the Broncos didn't do anything special there. The Cowboys imploded on themselves. I haven't seen anything in a Broncos game yet that makes me go, maybe I'm wrong about them. Right?
Well,
Maybe this team is different than what I thought they were. They're exactly what I thought they were.
they have a pretty good defense. So that's the one thing they got going for them. They got a defense that can still go out there.
Hundred
You're talking about the problem that they're always going to have is going to be that offensive side. And if there's one thing that the Chargers have kind of lacked a little bit is some decent offensive consistency. Herbert's definitely played off at times this season. So there's a little window there for the Broncos at home, but that spread gotta go with the Chargers on this. And then looking forward, you gotta feel like the Broncos are going to be the odd team out, one of the odd teams out. There's going to be a couple, obviously, but
I have a weird feeling I'm not going to pick the Broncos again this year. Not necessarily that I think they're going to lose to Detroit, but I have a feeling that odds makers
that
are going to just
spread.
put a big spread on that thing again. And it's going to be like, have you guys not watched Detroit this year? They don't lose by a lot. I got a weird feeling this is it for Denver and me feeling confident in them this year. This murders row of the last few weeks of the season, and it's going to go poorly, I think, for them.
We'll look right into it here. This might be one of I would say 2 games of the week, oddly enough, that aren't in a prime time slot. Kind of a damn shame, but good afternoon game here. We got the L.A. Rams going into Green Bay to play the Packers. Packers actually getting +1 at home here. You're talking about 2 of the tops as far as the NFC is concerned. Rams in that first wildcard spot. Green Bay leading that NFC North right now. This is obviously with the +1 point spread. Kind of pretty much a pick'em game at this
Virtual
point.
pick'em, yeah.
I think a lot of people you gotta you talk about acquisitions that this Rams team has had. A couple weeks ago, Odell the big thing. Weeks before that,
Miller.
Von Miller. We talked about it before. We touched upon it, and it's a strange thing to say, but the injury to Robert Woods, that torn ACL, is going to ripple through this team for the rest of the season. I think you have a little bit of a bounce back game here for the Green Bay Packers. I really like the Green Bay Packers here at home to I think actually a pretty decent win against the Rams here coming in. And my thing with Woods is I almost feel like the way they've utilized him in the running game, he's a great blocking wide receiver. He's almost like when you took not quite to the full extent, but he's almost like if you take Kittle off the Niners. Those times when that happens, you talk about a very capable receiver, but it really is someone who helps make your run game go the way it does. And I think that's what Robert Woods was in a second wideout spot for the Rams. I just don't think this offense is able to go like Matt Stafford could make it operate without him. So I see this Rams team not looking nearly as good as they were early in the season based on that injury. And that's weird to say for talking about the number 2 wide receiver there, but I think that's
Big
how.
loss.
Yeah, I think it's a big loss for him.
100%. It's a big loss. Give me the Rams. um, I until last week, I would have probably gone with the Packers here because I still don't think the Rams have fully gelled yet, right? I still think there's going to be a little bit of timing issues there and stuff like that. The Packers defense and their coming and going concerns me a little bit here. And Aaron Rodgers and his COVID toe or broken toe or whatever toe issue he's having concerns me.
He's slinging the rock out there, man. He was doing just fine that last game, toe or not.
Yeah, but hearing him complain about it's what concerns me more than anything else.
That toe sucked,
Right?
dude. You ever hurt your foot, hurt your toe? I'm sure you have. You're a soccer player. You hurt that shit
Oh
all
yeah,
the
I
time,
have.
right?
It
That shit
sucks.
sucks. It
It sucks.
sucks.
But like I was going to say there. My issue with it isn't that the toe hurts him. Of course the toe hurts him. My issue with it is that he's speaking openly about how much it's bothering him. Right? That he's speaking openly about how badly it was bothering him moving. Aaron Rodgers doesn't run the ball a lot, but being able to move the pocket around is something he does very well. Right? If his mobility is in any way hampered against Aaron Donald coming off his blind side, that could be a bad time. I don't love this Packers offense. I do like this Rams defense. I think the Rams defense is going to be a difference maker here.
Potential. I know they, or like any team, it's not surprising. People are going to be dinged up left and right. I know they have. I know they've had some injuries at like defensive tackle. I know on the line a little bit there. But the thing with the Rams is for me is coming out nice, coming out really good, and I think after the Tampa Bay win, a lot of people were really fired up within that first few games for the Rams. If you take a look at anything after that, all loss against the Arizona Cardinals, not anything to be ashamed of. Cardinals is a damn good team. They rack up a nice 4-win streak, but you're talking about wins against Seattle, New York Giants, Detroit Lions, Houston Texans.
Yep.
A lot of crap teams there that you get wins against. They absolutely lay bombs against Tennessee and the Niners.
Yep.
Going into this bye week, you think they're going to be probably fired up, but they're going into Green Bay. On the road, into Green Bay, afternoon game. Going to be cold as some bitch. Actually, at this point, it's going to be late afternoon by the time they kick off. It's going to be a 4:30 kickoff, so that's going to be going into the evening in Green Bay. I don't think this Rams team is nearly the team that we were seeing at the beginning of the season, and I don't know if they'll get back there by the end of the season at all. I think there's a reason why they dropped a couple of those games there. Offense isn't nearly as clicking as much. Matty Stafford showing his Matty Stafford things and not really driving this offense in the way that they were looking earlier on anyways in the season. And I think Green Bay, as much as we were talking about an up and down defense, they absolutely have. It's been up and it's been down. And they had a bit of a down that last game, I think, against Minnesota. I think Minnesota usually, they played Green Bay very well. I see this as a little bit of an upswing for Green Bay, and I think they do pretty well against this Rams offense. So we got a split game there. All right. I do respect, like, I think Stafford definitely is. Like, he's showing he's better than what he was offered in Detroit. He can only do so much there, right? But I think there's also something to be said about you're gonna lose some key players perhaps, and I don't know what the hell Odell Beckham's gonna do back there. Like, he's not gonna play the Robert Woods role, so he's gonna play in some spread formation stuff, I guess. Like, that signing seems a little bit more, a lot of splash without a lot of substance.
It made a lot more sense if they still had Robert Woods.
Right.
Without Robert Woods, he's certainly not the guy you need out there. I make no mistake, I don't think the Rams win this because they win a shootout. I think the Rams win this because I don't trust the Packers offense at all.
Okay. And this is a little bit more of a down year for Rodgers. You're not wrong on that. Not quite the offensive powerhouse that you'd expect from that side. Not having Aaron Jones out there, absolutely, that's going to hurt that team. So yeah, definitely something to take away there. I just really like Green Bay at home, getting a point even. This could
Lambeau's a tough place to go play.
This could be a game that literally comes down to that 1 point too. So we'll see how it shakes out. That'll be very interesting. Definitely a pick'em game. That's why it's only a point spread there. But yeah, give me Green Bay at home for that one. And we were talking about it earlier. We'll talk about it now. This is my game of the week. I think it's a lot of people's game of the week. This is as I was saying. This is close as you're going to talk about as far as a playoff-esque game in the middle of a season. Reason being is these are two wild card teams right now, potential exact same records. So down the line, we're talking about tiebreakers, that sort of thing could come into effect. So this is a big game for both teams right here. You got the 5-5 Minnesota Vikings going into Santa Clara, to play the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco getting a -3 at home here. You know who I got, so who do you got?
Surprisingly big line. I think this game is as close as that Green Bay Rams game. This is one of those games where you could really go either way on it, and I don't think I'd really argue it. Eli Mitchell potentially being out could be a big loss for the Niners. We've talked about it before. The Niners really rely on that run game to make the pass game actually work. I think in games where that run game hasn't shown up as much, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't do as much. They go hand in hand. Minnesota's defense isn't spectacular. It doesn't blow you away in any one spot, that's for sure. That being said, Kirk Cousins is on a blinder right now.
So here's the thing. You got the sneaky, ever so sneaky, and sometimes it's some strange play calling back there. Kyle Shanahan decided last week Deebo Samuel is going to be our running back because we don't have Eli Mitchell. And
that's true.
God damn, was he a good running back. Hand the rock, get the ball into Deebo Samuel. You're talking about the guy with the most yards after the catch in the game by far. I think he gets almost 10 yards after the catch.
He doesn't go down after the first
He does
contact.
not. He'll get that 5 yard slant and he'll turn that into a 20 or 50 or they were sliding him in. They ran him like a running back, and I'd rather see Eli Mitchell back there personally. Jermichael Hasty has been an unfortunate one. That's the guy who you usually have kind of spelling Eli Mitchell in those situations. And the team obviously doesn't have the trust in Trey Sermon yet to be able to start carrying the rock for them like you would have expected their third round pick that they moved up to get to do. But I like how you got Ayuk, who is starting to get a little bit more get more touches as a receiver. You got guys like Juwan Jennings who have popped up very surprisingly. Someone who's also kind of like in that Robert Woods-esque style. Great run blocker. Guy who can really get in there. He's pretty damn scrappy. Kittle obviously being in there. I love that we have there's that flexibility that the Niners have right now with Debo back there to where I want to see Eli back there. Eli Mitchell would rather see him back there. I don't know if we necessarily fall off offensively too much due to that. So, I mean, no surprise. Give me the Niners with the -3 at home for sure. Getting this win.
The thing I struggle with San Francisco right now is how good are they really? Because they look really good against really bad teams. And outside of that Rams game, they haven't really shown to look good against good teams. Like, they play them close, but they don't win them.
I mean, that Green Bay game was pretty much a win.
What does the record book say on that one again? The 30-28 San Fran, right? No, that's a loss. That's a loss.
But yeah, okay. But
all victories don't count in the NFL.
Yeah, but you're saying like they had no chance, like they didn't play a good team well right there. And they absolutely
Not what I
played the
said at
Green
all.
Bay.
I said they always play good teams well. They just don't win them.
I mean, yeah, you're saying as of late. I mean that obviously the Rams team. You're talking about. I think some obvious mistakes by a defense that could have easily kept Green Bay from being able to kick a 51-yard field goal from Mason Crosby, who is the most up and down kicker in the fucking league this year.
Dude is the picture of inconsistency.
He just hit the 51-yarder against us. I mean, yeah, good luck if you get that from him from every fucking season. So yeah, there's a lot that fell into them nicely to get that win. That's absolutely could have been a win.
We just talked about how the Lions could be 5-6.
Yeah. But I mean, you're talking about
10-1.
You're talking about 27 seconds of playtime right there, in which they were back at their 25. That easily should have been. There's a lot of games that will just die right there, and they won't ever have a chance to kick that field goal.
But it didn't.
Yes, but see, what you're saying is like that was that bad of a loss. I didn't see that as that bad of a loss.
I didn't say that was bad a loss at all. But it's a loss. My point is, the Niners this year have been the picture of inconsistency. They beat bad teams. For the most part, they lose to good teams. Regardless of how they play them, they lose those games. Now they play an average team, and I don't know where that puts this game. Give me the Niners. They're at home. I usually like to take the home team in games that I think are this close. I'm not sold on the Niners at all. Their stretch run is very favorable for them, though. They'll probably be a playoff team. But I don't know what they are. I'm not confident on this one, but I think the home team pulls it out.
They are a playoff team, my friend. I'm just gonna say that. Simple as that. Simple as that.
I mean, I think they will be a playoff team. So I don't know why. I mean, do you want to argue semantics of whether they are good enough to be a playoff team or whether they will be a playoff team?
No, I just said they're a playoff team. Simple as that. You could take it or leave it.
I I agree based on how they will end up on the standings.
Into our next one, we got Cleveland. This Cleveland team, we've been kind of talking about them. They're up and down. Their situation with their quarterback. I think as much of an up and down team as they have been is this Baltimore Ravens team that they're going into Baltimore to play. Baltimore getting -3.5 at home here. Um, yeah, 6-5 Cleveland team against a 7-3 Ravens team. I don't like this line at all. This is the absolute worst line this could have had because this is a Ravens team that wins games by field goals all the fucking time. So I hate this line. I honestly think a decent amount Ravens win this game. It's whether they win this by over 3.5 that put me on the fence of it.
I'm not even sure the Ravens win this game, to be honest with you. They're a different team from quarter to quarter. It's astounding how remarkably bad they can be and then just come out and play better. They're the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the NFL. I don't like the Browns. I don't know, this game sucks. I'll take the Ravens, I guess, because they have the talent to win that game, and they tend to win games. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what this Baltimore Ravens team is.
Yeah, this is honestly the kind of game they play. Uh, they'll play close to. Like they seem to have their primetime games have gone down to the wire quite often actually. So this is a Sunday night game. I'm a little worried about as well. Um, the fact that they're at home, I don't know how much of a huge factor that is, but I think it's just enough to make me favor Baltimore at that line to be able to get the win. And I feel like man, it's tough to say because yeah, like I said, I think this is a team that has won games by field goals all the way. But if you feel like they're going to win outright, it's hard to pick against them at least having it by 4. Right, that's a pretty skinny margin you're talking about between winning it by 1 and 3 points there. So yeah, I'll take Baltimore kind of begrudgingly as well. But
That line sucks.
yeah, that's a tough one. Bookkeepers, like we said before, they know what the fuck they're doing with these lines,
100%.
and these ones are very tight. This week was actually the largest line you have is Tennessee New England, which you wouldn't have expected maybe if certain
And
players are
surprisingly
playing.
enough,
Yeah,
one of the easier games we've picked this week, I think, right? For both of us. I feel like we both felt pretty bullish looking at the injury reports, looking at where the teams are going. I think we both felt pretty bullish, like, yeah, New England should probably win this by a touchdown.
yeah.
Whereas some of these close ones feel like they really uh, just could go either way.
And talking about games that can go either way, this one's again put it at the skinniest line possible at that -1. We got the Seattle Seahawks going in to Washington to go against the emails here. Emails getting -1 at home. Is this the time for Taylor Heineke to start pulling this team up, rise from the ashes, and actually be close to a 500 team here?
Now, I've been very down on Taylor Heineke in the past. Um, Honestly, deservedly so. He played like dog shit at the start of this year. Then he goes and plays Tom Brady and it gives him superpowers again. Um, Seattle stinks. Washington stinks. Seattle's got Russell Wilson. Washington's got Taylor Heineke. I think in a game like this, where you got two teams who just aren't very good, I'm gonna go with the guy who I know is good versus the guy who has had a couple of flashes in the pan. I know Russell Wilson's hurt, but he's also playing the emails. And I'm gonna take Seattle here. I don't know if I love the pick. I don't know quite how I feel about the pick, but I think this is the kind of game that Russell Wilson can drag even this dreary disappointment of a team to a victory.
It's this one, yeah. When you got two teams that have really just kind of been this more or less bad throughout the season. It's kind of interesting, obviously, where they're both lining up. You're talking about a couple nice wins that Washington has been able to take advantage of, and I think that's why you see them favored in this line. I think Seattle, obviously, with when you put up a 0 in your last couple games, like that's going to be hard to really believe
Yeah.
that offense is going to go. But that was Green Bay. That was a good defense Green Bay game. That sort of thing. So you can maybe gauge it with that. -1. I as much as it is strange for me to think, and even as bad as Seattle has been this season, I would have never thought I was leaning this way. I'm going to take the split and give me Washington at home to be able to pull off the win against Seattle here. I think they do just enough against this horrendous Seattle team.
Yeah, I can't argue it.
Who really could either way. I mean, yeah, you're hoping though that Russell Wilson looks better than he has in the last couple games, right? He should, hopefully, as that injury is getting healed. But hopefully he has, again, I think came back too early, didn't need to be really doing this to himself, and has all the opportunity to re-aggravate or injure something again.
Yep.
You know,
And cost himself a lot of money because
right?
he's going to get paid this offseason.
I think so.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I still think Taylor Heineke's a pumpkin, right? I don't think I don't think these last couple of weeks have been like, oh look, see, this is the quarterback we thought, Taylor Heineke. Like the guy's 28. If he was honestly going to be a really good NFL quarterback, I think he'd have done it by now. Right? This isn't some 24-year-old fresh out of college who was a rookie backup all last year, came in and now he's starting to show who he really is. He's a year older than Marcus Mariota. Like I just
Yeah.
I don't believe Taylor Heineke is anything. So
No, I mean, yeah, not much of anything. I would say, any kind of future or anything like that. But I
no.
think in this current situation, given the team that he's playing, could pick them up a win.
I'm just
It's a
honestly I
pick 'em.
go
It's a goddamn pick
game
'em, though.
like this, I'll take the better quarterback, I guess.
Yeah. And there you go. That's your Monday night game right there. So I'll just kind of go through it. We've picked the same across the board except for 4 games. In the Pittsburgh at Cincinnati game, I have Cincinnati. Craig has Pitt. In the Carolina at Miami game, I have Miami. Craig has Carolina. In the Rams at Green Bay game, I have Green Bay. Craig has the Rams. And in that final game that we just discussed right there, Seattle going into Washington. Give me Washington. Craig has Seattle. Uh,
Like I
very,
don't think
yeah,
either of us are particularly confident in.
incredibly tight spreads across the board. So a lot of these games could just wash out in that regard. I think a lot of you get a lot of teams that are floating around 500s, that sort of thing, or one's looking good, one's looking bad. So quite a few tough games on this slate here, but we'll see if we can do a little bit better. Especially me. Hopefully, I go a little bit better than 5-9 this week, but we'll see. And that takes care of the Week 12 slate. I'll throw it to you. Any hot topics on your mind in as
so
far as the wide sports world here?
so it's interesting. There's a couple of things that I was following that have kind of come to pass today, really. Um, First one I think that pops out is did you hear that the Hall of Fame semifinalists have been selected for the NFL?
I have not actually. I haven't seen that.
So they have named the 26 semi-finalists for the class of 2022. I will list them off here. And then I was just wondering if there's anybody here who stands out to you, because there's a couple in my head. But the list here of the 26 is Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, Anquan Bolden, Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Eddie George, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Robert Mathis, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Steve Smith Sr., Fred Taylor, Zach Thomas, Steve Tasker, Hines Ward, DeMarcus Ware, Ricky Waters, Reggie Wayne, Vince Wilfork, Patrick Willis, Darren Woodson, Bryant Young.
Oh
Anybody on
man.
that list pop off the page to you?
I mean, how does my boy Patrick Willis not pop off the page? One of the best in the goddamn game right there. I love to see P. Willie getting, getting the love there. I mean, how do you not put that guy in first ballot? I don't know what the numbers are looking like necessarily. Guys like Anquan Bolden were always interesting to me, given that when he was with the Cards, kind of having to play a little bit of second fiddle to Larry Fitz, right? Um, Had floated around, obviously, a couple other teams, Baltimore there, obviously, the time there. Uh, Love a guy like Anquan Bolden, though, just a fucking absolute battler. Eddie George, love to watch that dude run. So I love to see his name up there. Interesting to see what's gonna, how a guy like Fred Taylor is gonna be rated. Honestly, his name definitely popped off the board on me because again, a guy I love to see running. But as far as numbers and what, especially kind of toward the end of his season, what was he looking like? That would be interesting to see. Um, but yeah, obviously, first name that pops up to me is good old P. Willie and Bryant Young. Gotta love me some Bryant Young as well.
So there was three names to me that really stood out. And you did name one of them, and that's Patrick Willis. The fact that Patrick Willis didn't get in last year is a goddamn disgrace.
Yeah,
And he
that's right.
will be in this year. I am willing to almost promise that. Um, in his time, one of the best linebackers in the game, right? Just absolute dominant dude. All pro 5 times. He was only in the league for 8 seasons.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. And
how
I
do you,
guess that's the knock, right? That's the knock that's been on
that
his
is the
truck here.
knock. But like 5 times in 8 seasons, nah.
Yeah,
Patrick Willis should be in. I think he will be in. Another guy. There's two guys here who should be in, who I think will make it in, but maybe not this year. One is a lot more of a sexy name than the other. Torrey Holt, I think, will see his time in the sun. Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce were just the tandem of wide receivers when I was growing up watching football. Everybody, like, so I'm in Canada, right? So we don't have a team. The greatest show on turf, that was what all the kids wanted to be in the park, right? Right? When you were
yeah,
playing touch
yeah.
football, your team, your quarterback was Kurt Warner. You had Holt and Bruce on the wings, man. And that was it. That was who everybody wanted to be. I'm shocked Isaac Bruce made it in ahead of Torrey Holt. Because I always thought Torrey Holt was the better one. But I do think Torrey Holt will have his time. Somebody who I think will have his time and who is not the sexiest name in the world, but definitely should be, is Jared Allen. Jared Allen played for a lot of teams. A lot of people might famously remember him as the guy who pointed out to the referee that Dan Orlovsky stepped out of the back of the end zone on a rather famous play. But Jared Allen was a beast.
Right.
4-time All Pro, led the NFL in sacks twice. He has an NFL record 4 safeties in his list. Like, the guy was unbelievably good. Um, he maybe should have gone in last year, but the fact that Patrick Willis didn't go in last year means that there was no chance Jared Allen was going in. I like you can't put in Jared Allen before you put in Patrick Willis. You just can't. But Jared Allen needs a lot more credit than he's given.
Hmm.
And then the guy who needs to be in the guy who I would have thrown in first ballot, honestly, because he changed the game, unlike anybody else on this list.
I know you're going to.
Devin Hester.
Yeah.
Devin Hester needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I get it. He wasn't a great wide receiver, but the dude changed the way people looked at kick returning. Right? Like there's like a whole line of kick returning that you can look at as before Devin Hester and after Devin Hester.
Right.
Right? The way that teams block for a return man, the way that teams look at what you should look for in a return man, right? A return man used to be the guy who was sure-handed, who was kind of fast, right? Because you just really wanted him to catch the ball and get up about 20, 30 yards.
Yeah.
Devin Hester added this whole other element of being a little bit bulkier, right? He wasn't big, but he wasn't going down easily. Right, he was elusive. He made guys miss. He just opened up this whole new reality of kick returning, where your kick returner could be a difference maker, where your kick returner was scoring touchdowns, putting your team in positions to win games based just on the fact that other teams couldn't kick to him. Right, it got to the point where teams couldn't kick to Devin Hester anymore because they were giving up too many points doing it. Devin Hester needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I will get people who want to argue that he maybe shouldn't be, but I will disagree heavily.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, if you're taking a look at, pure stats, and you're taking a look at those stats that, when he'll be listed, does he get listed as a returner? That's not really a position in the league, right? So be listed as, wide out?
Wide receiver, and his wide receiver stats aren't particularly good.
So yeah, I mean, I guess there's gonna always be that element to it as far as looking at it from a pure stat point. But yeah, absolutely, that's his ability to I mean, it was a factor. It was an absolute factor to a game, and very few individual players are factors like that, to where they're going to dictate how an offense, a defense, that's my definition of a Hall of Fame player. Yeah. Who is someone that when they took the field, you needed to pay attention to that son of a bitch, because if you didn't,
he was going to burn you.
You're in trouble. Whether it was the offensive side, defensive side, what have you. So yeah, I'm more or less in agreement with Devin Hester. The interesting kind of it's the way it's built now, as far as the rules are concerned, probably never going to see another guy like that ever.
Nope.
Right? They're trying to take away kickoffs more or less.
Yeah.
And punt return game isn't really going to see that. Guys are usually hanging the ball for fair catches nowadays as far as punt returns are concerned.
And again, a lot of that is Devin Hester, right? Because it got to the point where teams were like, it's just not worth it, right? We'd rather you have the ball at the 20 than give Devin Hester a chance, right? Or we'd rather take 10 yards off of this punt than give your punt returner a chance to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? And teams just decided, like, we're no longer going to let returners be factors. Right? And that's Devin Hester. That's because of Devin Hester.
Right.
To me, it's like, he took Rex Grossman to a Super Bowl. That should get you in the Hall of Fame as it is.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, obviously that's kind of the shame. These are semi-finalists we're talking about. We're not talking about people that are getting in there. There's always going to be those guys where it's like, if you had watched them play and you're potentially wondering how the hell is this guy getting left off. But yeah, it's like that Patrick Willis factor. Like, if you don't have the pedigree of seasons added up, perhaps your greatness in the time you did play isn't really going to be able to isn't going to come through for some folks. I think Devin Hester within that pocket right there, obviously, changed a lot how special teams was played in the league. Yeah. So you gotta look at that as well. I think as far as as someone you won in the Hall of Fame, I think it's the fame. The Hall of Fame. What was the fame part of it? Who did you have the eyes on?
Yeah.
Who'd you always have the eyes on whenever a kickoff or punt or whatever was happening, Devin fucking
Devin
Hester.
Devin
So
Hester made Bears games with Rex Grossman as quarterback must-watch affairs
yeah,
because you knew the second that ball was in the air on a kickoff or on a punt, it's going into Devin Hester's hands, and you better watch out because that guy can make electricity happen. But yeah, I Patrick Willis should have been in last year.
yeah,
He's first and foremost needs to be in. I think it's kind of silly that he wasn't. But I did want to shine some love on a couple guys on that list who I think deserve it.
yeah.
Maybe not so much going to get it, but probably deserve it. Um, one, I far be it from me to bring up soccer back-to-back weeks, but something very fascinating happened today in the continent of Europe that has set Europe ablaze. Did you hear about the draw for the World Cup playoff in Europe?
Not at all.
So,
What do you
the
got?
way the European playoff works, I'll try to explain this as quickly as possible. They had 10 groups in qualifying for the World Cup. The first place team in every group made it through to the World Cup. The second place team in every group goes into a playoff along with two other of the top ranked teams that didn't make the top two. These are then drawn. You go into three groups of four where you play like a semifinal and a final, and the three teams that win those groups go to the World Cup. Now, why this was interesting is both Portugal and Italy finished second in their group, so we're in the playoffs. And then today, Portugal and Italy got drawn into the same path to make the World Cup, which means one of them will miss the World Cup. One of either Portugal or Italy, two of the best teams in the world right now. Probably Cristiano Ronaldo's last attempt at a World Cup versus the European champions. One of them's going to miss in March.
Hmm.
And as far as a sports story goes, this is probably the biggest one in the world right now. It's unbelievable. There was like everybody was kind of saying like it could happen. Imagine the madness if Portugal and Italy had to play each other in a playoff game where only one of them can go through. And it does call to light a bit of an issue with the way the system works.
Right.
Because if you look at the other groups, like, so Path A's got Scotland, Ukraine, Wales, and Austria. And Path B has Russia, Poland, Sweden, and the Czech Republic. So two teams that are worse than Portugal and Italy are going to make it in ahead of Portugal and Italy without having to beat them.
Yeah.
It's kind of a problem, right? I can understand that. But for the pure drama of it all, in March, that Portugal-Italy game, which we assume is going to happen, obviously. Italy has to beat Macedonia, Portugal has to beat Turkey. They both should. The drama of that game in March is going to be fascinating. And I just wanted to bring it up because I'm Portuguese. I have a Portuguese background. So for me it's kind of heartbreaking. But I can't deny how exciting that game's going to be in Lisbon, in the Stadio de Luz, in March for a World Cup spot versus the European champions in a situation we never thought we'd be in. Oh my God, it's going to be interesting.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when you're talking about the, yeah. I mean, you need games that can draw interest even when it's not like right there toward the semifinals, finals, that sort of thing. When you talk about just qualification for something as big as the World Cup is, um, that's pretty nutty. Yeah, maybe rules change. These are the sort of things to where years down the line or whatever, maybe these rules are revisited. Like, hey, remember that time we really fucked up when we didn't get two of the best teams in the tournament?
Yeah,
But
you know that the FIFA officials probably aren't happy about it,
right,
right? Because the FIFA officials looking at this and are going, wait a second, we're getting one of Scotland, the Ukraine, Wales, and Austria, but we're not getting one of Portugal and Italy,
yeah,
right? And you think about, God forbid, like, I think FIFA would be a little bit more upset if Portugal missed this, not because Portugal's a better team than Italy, but rather because of who misses if Portugal misses, right? Not having Cristiano Ronaldo at a World Cup, that's a big miss, I think, for FIFA, especially in what will be his last one, right? He's 38 now. This is it. He's got one more.
Yeah.
And if Portugal misses this and they don't get Cristiano Ronaldo at his swan song, I think FIFA will be quite upset with it. That being said, the drama of it can't beat it. Can't beat it. You
Soccer.
got anything?
Yeah, we get a little bit of soccer information here. I have no idea what the fuck's going on, but I'm glad Craig's keeping us appraised of the situation. I mean, yeah, you got, and that's the thing. Only time soccer even appears on like my sports feeds,
Yeah,
World Cup. So
World Cup.
interesting early developments in the scene. What drama are we gonna have going forward?
It,
Good stuff.
I
Right
figured
there.
it was a big enough deal where I
Yeah.
could warrant the once again mentioning of soccer. Don't worry. That's it for internationals for a little bit now, and the leagues are going into January, which is always the boring time, anyways. So we won't have to worry about soccer for a bit yet. But I had to bring it up.
Right.
Such an unbelievably fascinating development that really kind of fucked over FIFA a little bit, and I don't think they realized it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, the only thing I had a couple things that I was looking to, but really the only thing I actually really want to bring up this week, kind of hit on it before. We talked about that Raiders Cowboys game, absolute phenomenal game. You gotta love it when a game goes to OT. You get a little extra football on Thanksgiving. Nothing wrong with that. But the one problem we have with that game, we're talking about 28 penalties between the two teams. A just that game gets obviously there's a time thing that factors into that, and the game gets drawn out more and more as these flags coming in. But I guess kind of talking about the broader topic, this hits on all sports across the board, right? There is the leniency and the tolerance of the bending of rules in every sport. Football, you're
Absolutely.
probably talking about holding, you're talking about PIs. Now you have to factor in quarterback hits and
Taunting.
light hits, taunting. I mean, taunting's a little bit like that's really a
15
judgment
yards,
call, right?
baby.
That's really a judgment call. This is kind of like in the
Yeah.
rules, but like
Yeah.
those slight leans. Like he's grabbing his jersey. Does he get around him to the edge? And if he has him there, then that's a hold. But like that happens all the time, right? You talk about traveling in basketball. This Euro step bullshit that you're essentially taking 3.5 steps. You cannot tell me that's not a fucking travel.
The
You
James
took it from
Harden
the
3-pointer
you
where
took
he
that stuff
where
from
he
the
double
3-point
jumps
line.
back.
Or the shit back. It's like, no, you're fucking holding the ball. That's a travel, but apparently not anymore. Strike zones in baseball, obviously, that's incredible. Like, that's up to that guy behind the plate calling their strike zone. Basically, kind of getting to the point to where, we've had this integration of technology more and more into sports. And the idea that I think NFL has become more and more into this for some reason. They've stepped away from it. I think about when, as far as ruling somebody out of bounds, they used the force out, right? And that was a rule they tried to interpret for a bit of time. If a guy was forced out, that would still count as a catch if it was deemed a certain way, right? The judgment calls that have to be put on refs, like everybody will get upset about the refs, and in a game like that, everybody looks at 28 flags and is like, "What the hell is that?" But I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. Maybe not sympathetic, but more just like, well, if you make the rules the way you make them for a lot of these leagues, you're gonna have these really up and down results. You're gonna have varying strike zones. You're gonna have holds that are gonna be called by one crew that aren't gonna be called by another. And how much, I don't know if you'll ever taken out of football for things like holding and certain PI calls and that sort of thing. But like there was a PI call in I don't even think it was that game. It might have even been the Chicago Detroit game. The ball's clearly overthrown the dude, but they still called it
PI. Game.
Yeah,
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
But they called it a PI anyways. And when you're talking about offenses like the Bears and the Lions that could barely get any traction anyways, giving them 15 yards automatically like that's a big deal. I'm just wondering, like, kind of what are your thoughts as far as, do you think there's a way in which we can start skidding down the judgment calls, especially in the NFL, for refs, make it a little bit more of an automated system in which you have all these cameras, you have the digital way, there's already a chip in the goddamn football. First downs, like I think maybe it was Pat McAfee or whatever talking about, why the hell are they bringing out the chains for a 1st and 10? Motherfucker, you could do that without any issue with the technology you already have. You could call a 10. Why the hell are we bringing out the factor and this like this kind of silly, it's antiquated to some extent as far as the amount of calls that we require refs to make on the field for a lot of sports, and NFL especially.
I will bring up a tale of caution. And again, I feel bad because I'm going back to soccer.
Oh, yes. And I saw your take on this. So this, yeah.
Has been a real issue in soccer.
Right.
And the problem with it is it's still run by people, right? So you saw the thing I put out on Twitter where there was a VAR judgment call.
Just put the lines wherever the fuck you want.
on the Liverpool-Porto Champions League game this week. Mm-hmm. And they drew 2 lines on the field to adjudge that this player was offside. But the one line wasn't pointing at anything. It was just a line. Like, nobody was standing on it. Nobody's shoulder, like, nobody was leaning into it. They just drew a red line on the field. And they're like, see, this line clearly shows he's offside. And it's one of those things where it's like, so all we've done in soccer is take more time to still get the calls wrong. Right? There are certain things that I do think you can absolutely do. The chip in the ball thing, for example. Goal line technology in soccer is one thing that's been an absolute godsend. Right? Because here's what happens. Ball goes to the line, right? They have sensors in like 20 points on the ball or something like that. If every sensor crosses the line, the referee's watch lights up green, right? And that tells the referee that the ball, every sensor crossed this point, it's a good goal, right? If it doesn't, the watch will light up red, right? Like he'll call to the official to send a signal, and the watch will light up red, right? So it's something that takes literally 2 seconds and has saved a lot of hassle. I don't think anybody's had a problem with goal line technology in soccer at all. It's been fantastic. I think that's a very easy thing where you can not only make it better and more accurate, but actually save some time.
Yeah.
Right? You have that chip in the ball already. If all you got to do is put sensors on the chains, right? On the actual first down markers themselves. If the ball crosses that sensor, bang. Flash, green, first down. Ball crossed. Right? Yeah. Sure, you're going to have a little bit of issue with like spot of the ball things, but you already have that issue anyways. Right? As far as whether or not it's a first down, I do think we have the technology that can make that really easy and save some time rather than having to have the people run out every time. Line up the chains. Oh no, my chain is off center a little bit. We got to reline it up. Put it down. Look at it. Ball short. Go back. It's so there is technology that can help, but I do hazard away from like a lot of technological integration. Another thing that I've heard a lot about that I don't want to see come into the game is in baseball, and it's the automated umpire strike zone.
Yeah.
I think there's a particular skill set in baseball that I love, that I personally love. It's one of my favorite parts of baseball, and it's framing, right? It's the catcher's ability to successfully lie to umpires and some catchers are really good at it, right? And I love the fact that, you because of the fact that there's human error, you now have this way for players to kind of cheat a little bit, right? Not in a sense of like sticky stuff on the ball or anything like that, but literally by playing tricks with the umpire's eyes, right? And you get players who get really good at this, right? And you have catchers who can steal your team games just by framing the ball really well, right? I love the fact that that's a skill. I don't want that skill to go away, right? There are some. I think leagues right now need to be really careful to know where their line is, right? I think we all want a certain amount of accountability to the referees, a certain amount of video assistance to be in there. But you got to be really careful about going too far the other way and going into where soccer territory is now, where we're having to draw imaginary lines on the screen to make calls make sense, right? And where there was one game that they had where like they showed the replay and even the commentators were like, the lines are crooked. They're not straight. Like, you're not judging this properly because your lines aren't right, right? If you need to go to an official to draw lines on a screen to determine something, go with what was called on the field. Period. I think we have gone a little bit too far in certain sports and need to come back a little bit. I do think there's something there with the NFL. The officiating's been awful this year, and something clearly needs to change. I don't know how much of it is video assistance, right?
Yeah.
And instead how much of it is just the NFL needs to chill the fuck out with their rules a little bit, right? The taunting penalties are getting stupid. The pass interference calls, because every piece of contact now is pass interference, right? You in trying too hard to make the game more offensive, you've made the game noticeably worse for everybody to watch. Right? I think the solution isn't so much video assistance as it is chill the fuck out with the rules, dial everything back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me, like, it's kind of a combination. Because I do agree. I mean, games like football, you given most of the rules, there is no computer factor that you could throw in there to just be like, oh yeah, that's a. But I talked about this with PI calls that we were seeing. Maybe it was, I want to say maybe it was a Green Bay game or something like that, but it was a very iffy PI call that was called toward the end of the game. And obviously those are going to always be factors. And it's kind of the idea, the same thing that, offensive linemen get called for holding. And sometimes it's absolutely egregious. You got a guy who's absolutely ripping him away. He's absolutely pulling him. But it was kind of more or less thought, there's holding on every goddamn play. You could probably call hold on any given play for an offensive line. And while it's like, well, why isn't there, they got to change how they. The thing is, as an offensive lineman, you're at the disadvantage right off the bat. You have to take on whoever's rushing you. They're attacking. You're on the defensive. You're automatically already at a disadvantage for the most part. I mean, running game, that adds some factors in. That's not that case. But so you're already kind of, that's a bad situation. Same thing for a defensive back. This is what I brought up before. Defensive back is automatically at a disadvantage against a wide receiver. Wide receiver knows the route they're running. Quarterback knows the route they're running. They have the ability to just run free and are given a little bit more leeway as far as hand fighting and stuff is concerned, to where DB, if they do the same respective thing, even at a disadvantage, will be called for PI more often, right? You're just not going to be able to take some of those things from any NFL officiating. But I think when you start adding on all the other crap that could be resolved by automated systems, I think it's just, I don't want to say fatigue necessarily, but when you're having to make so many calls every play and everything has to be looked at so much by the refs. If you could take away some of that stuff, I think the overall quality of what you're going to get is going to be a bit better. Is it great right now? Is it good? Yeah, the taunting thing, like, I think they're gonna find just like they did with the celebrations, and they tried to take away celebrations from the NFL. They realized that was really fucking stupid. Well, let's bring the celebrations back, and I think maybe we get some ease up, maybe on the taunting if they take public perception or anything. But NFL is going to make their money anyways, so it's not like they're probably going to give too much of a shit. But just kind of getting to that point, yeah. I'd like to see some of the antiquated stuff that we could absolutely do away with go away as far as officiating, especially in the NFL. But games like that with the Raiders and the Cowboys there, I mean, you wouldn't say that necessarily as bad as it maybe is when you take a look at the stat line and you're like, Jesus, they called that many goddamn penalties. Didn't take away from that game. That was a damn fun game to watch, right? Entertaining as all hell. So in the end, maybe not as huge of a factor. Maybe if your team's getting screwed by it, it feels a little bit more like a factor. But it'll be interesting going forward. I think, yeah, the chip in the ball, first down technology, end zone technology, that's got to be a thing. Even out of bounds, I think they do a good job as far as like camera angles. But it's funny. The one I guess that kind of gets me sometimes is the goal line. I suppose you can only do so much because you're talking about when's the knee touchdown, when's the ball cross the play, and if they're middle of a fucking, of the end zone and you have linemen on all sides and everybody's collapsing in the center, digital solution maybe doesn't give you the full picture there. But as much as you could kind of help these guys out and not have to make so many good damn calls in a game, I think the overall quality, and you're probably going to see more consistency across the board as far as officiating if you start to add in the stuff that we have available to us technology-wise.
Here's the thing. Let's say over the course of a year, putting those sensors on the goal line to tell if the ball crossed the line or not helps officials call 10 plays that would have otherwise took them half an hour going upstairs to look at. It's probably worth it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's probably worth it just to have that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of plays where a lot of the question is, did the ball cross the goal line?
Yeah.
Right? You see it at least once or twice a week, right? If you watch across the games, there's the goal line play where the two come together, and the question isn't so much when was the knee down, it's did he ever cross the goal line?
Yeah.
Right?
Who is the Rams lineman that flipped over on his fucking head and he got that ball over, but they didn't give him the touchdown? Give the big man the touchdown. That's ridiculous he didn't get that. That's a dude that's literally maybe only going to have one shot at a touchdown his entire fucking life, and you took it away from him because you were Galarraga and you couldn't call the fucking third out in a perfect game sort of situation. That's another one right there.
That one.
How the fuck do you call him not out right there? You literally took.
Bad. You would figure in a perfect game situation, you would lean to the side of the guy who's got the perfect game.
How do you do that, Jim Joyce? And the whole scene that plays out after is tragic, but it's like that's an incredibly simple situation. You have the technology there. Don't hang Jim Joyce out to dry because he thought he saw something or heard something and it wasn't quite the case. Get it fucking right. And, but the funny thing is, he got more notoriety for not getting that perfect game than he ever would have for getting a perfect game.
Probably.
Right? Still know his name all these years later. I give him no shit about the Detroit Tigers, so. There you go, I guess. But yeah, that was the random topic I had. You have anything else for us?
Just one last small thing to bring up, and that's the fact that it's the last weekend of the college football regular season.
That's right.
And for all my Cincinnati crew out there, they beat the crap out of Eastern Carolina earlier today, 35-13. Like I was telling Tap before the stream started, I think Eastern Carolina scored a touchdown with maybe a minute left to make that game look a lot closer than it was. And Desmond Ridder actually played a pretty poor game, threw a couple interceptions. But they dominated like they have all season. Oregon losing last week was great. The thing that scares me is Alabama. Because I was mentioning this to Tap before the stream, and I still think it's true. So right now, you've got Cincinnati sitting at 4. They would make the playoffs if the playoffs were to start right now. It's Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, Cincinnati 4, Notre Dame 5. And here is my fear. My fear is Notre Dame wins this week. And remember, I am a Notre Dame fan.
Yep.
Notre Dame wins this week convincingly against Stanford. Cincinnati in the conference championship game has to play a very good Houston team. Alabama plays Georgia. My fear is Notre Dame wins convincingly this week. Alabama loses to Georgia but beats Auburn, and Cincinnati beats Houston but not particularly convincingly. And your four playoff teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and a two-loss Alabama. And what's important to note about that is Notre Dame's one loss on the year is Cincinnati.
That would be
I
the
am
thing. Yeah.
I am horrified of this coming to fruition. I will be cheering for Notre Dame this week because I want my four playoff teams to be Georgia, Ohio State, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. That's what I want.
Right.
Perfect world for me. I get Cincinnati in the playoff and I get Notre Dame in the playoff. Bonus. They shouldn't be there, Notre Dame. They got no right. But bonus. I two-loss Alabama scares the bejesus out of me because we know how college football voters vote. And Cincinnati doesn't have the tradition of Notre Dame and Alabama. I'm scared, but it should be a fun Saturday of football. If anybody out there like me is a big college football person, you look forward to these days. It's all rivalry games. The Apple Cup was played today. You got obviously the Iron Bowl tomorrow. Georgia Tech play tomorrow. The Red River rivalry should be fun.
Right. So yeah, I mean, right now this is my heyday. This is actually when I started paying attention to college football. Right at the end, because the rest of it's a muddled mess. The rankings, they barely fucking matter. And then you get into this shit show. And like you said, the fact that you could have a Cincinnati team
Undefeated Cincinnati.
go undefeated, win every single game you give them, and potentially win a game against a team that you put into the fucking playoffs. How can you not say that's the absolute most fucked playoff system you have? There's no way that should ever happen. And the fact that it's there's even a concept, there's even a potential scenario in which that could play out it's almost insulting. Like, what the fuck is Cincy supposed to do?
Yeah,
what do you want from them? Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And you talk about expanding playoffs and that sort of thing. But here's the one thing I will say against that. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off right there. The only college football thing I wanted to bring up, because I did have one thing. How the fuck does Michigan State be in the top 10, play another top 10 team in Ohio State, and get absolutely massacred like that? That's befuddling, into where you could even have that team ranked in the top 10. Granted, records is what it was. Now you talk about a 9-1 team. I guess it just kind of speaks to how strangely top heavy it seems like. You always are going to have your power teams up there every fucking year. Bama, obviously. Ohio State's been showing that. I just wonder how much more parity and intrigue you get out of expanding the playoff pool in that way, given you have regular season games which should have that kind of parity, and then it's just absolute stomping by the better team.
Yeah, and I talk about expanding the playoffs to get more of these teams in. If we were to have an 8-team playoff today, right now it would be hypothetically Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Mississippi, Michigan, and that's my 8, right? What, we add one non-power conference school just to get Michigan into the playoffs when they really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right, Notre Dame probably shouldn't be in the playoffs, and yet here they are still in the conversation because they beat up on Navy and Georgia Tech, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mentioned it in my first Cincinnati rant, right? I hate the fact that Cincinnati gets blamed for buying into the hype that everybody put on Indiana, right? It's not their fault Indiana ended up sucking, right? Everybody thought Indiana was going to be a good team. They openly went out of their way to schedule like we have two Power 5 conference schools on our schedule, both of whom everybody thinks is going to be good. One of whom is a high-ranked team in Notre Dame. The other one is a team that a lot of people are picking to make some noise in Indiana. We're going to win both those games, run out our conference, and we'll be fine. And what's happened instead is Indiana stinks. And now that Indiana win doesn't look as good,
No.
they beat Notre Dame, but now everybody's mentioning, oh, well, Notre Dame, they look like a new team these last few weeks. Would they have beaten Notre Dame now? Yes! Yeah, nothing changed with Notre Dame. They just played worse teams. Like,
Yeah.
I I don't want to see it happen, and I know I will see it happen, and I will be sad. And they'll argue, "Oh, well, we can't ding Alabama for losing to Georgia, especially if it's a tight game, right?" It's like, "Oh, we can't ding Alabama for losing to Georgia. What a tough game, right? Like we have Georgia as the best team in the nation. How can you knock Alabama for that? Fine, knock them for also losing to Texas A&M."
Right.
I don't know. I get it, but it's a frustrating system. And I also get why it has to be that way. Right? I do. In a league where you cannot physically play every team
Right.
or even a majority of the teams, you need some way to differentiate them. Right? So I do get that. I do get the way the strength of schedule thing works, right? And that we can't reward like there's another team that's got like a really good record in the top 25 who haven't played anybody of note. Um UTSA, right? We can't reward freaking UTSA for being 11 and 0 playing nobody. Right? We get that you're 11 and 0, but they literally haven't played a team who has who has beaten a team with a winning record. Like you can't reward a team for that. So it sucks for UTSA because they're undefeated out here going, well, what more can we do? Well, unfortunately, what more you could have done is actually schedule a couple of big teams, right? Schedule if you think you're going to be that team,
Yeah.
right? You schedule a team or two in there that's got some notoriety to them. And then when you beat them, now you're the one with the momentum. UTSA didn't do that. Cincinnati did. And I think they deserve to be there. I worry they won't be. And when they announce the college football playoffs and Cincinnati aren't in it, I will have a rant ready for this show. Let me tell you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's you're talking about just by sheer number, mathematics, that sort of thing. You can't really shake it out evenly. There's going to be those situations. I think you're talking about some of these teams. They played 11 games,
Yeah,
and when you're talking about 100 plus teams that
131, I believe.
yeah in throughout the conference, that sort of thing. And we all know, there's no secret. Powerhouse schools will, they'll throw some money at a, lower division team to come, play them, that sort of thing. And it helps out both. You get a you know, nice dub probably for your power conference school. You get a nice little boost to your funding for the smaller school, right? That's no mystery. That stuff's been done for years
Yeah.
now in college football, right? And so UTSA, not saying that they were deserving or anything like that based on what they do. You take a look at that schedule, and yeah, nobody
Nobody of note.
mostly of note, yeah. I mean, obviously you have to play within your conference as well, so you're already gonna be stuck to that. Um, I don't know. I just wonder how much, it's not like you could add a bunch more games, right?
No,
You're
you
gonna have
get
the problem with that. You have
conference
student
games.
athlete. You're talking about student athletes here. They're not professionals, so you can't really start laying on a bunch more games. A playoff expansion would potentially do that, but maybe you could limit that to a game or so. You try to have these
I mean,
conference championships that kind of supplement it a little bit, so you have at least
yeah.
the cream of the crop kind of rising, I guess. It's tough. College football is, unless you really start willing down that field of people that are in your top
Yeah.
conference, you're always going to have that math problem, right? That's just always going to be the case. Someone's going to
And
be undeserving of not being
I,
there.
I will say you did bring up another good point. That is worth noting to Cincinnati and maybe to UTSA. I don't know. But how willing are big schools going to be to schedule a non-conference game with a team like Cincinnati,
Yes.
who everybody, like, coming into the season, everybody knew, like, this Cincinnati team is good.
Yeah.
They're gonna be a team who could push for the playoffs good. How willing is Alabama gonna be to schedule that game?
Right.
Or Georgia, right? Uh, Maybe not, and even more so with a team like UTSA, who might be even more scary because they're not on the radar, right? For Notre Dame, for example, they scheduled that game with Cincinnati. They beat Cincinnati. That's a big win on their record.
Right.
You schedule UTSA and lose to UTSA, that's a bad loss. You beat UTSA, that's not a big win on your record, right? So that is another thing of note. In particular, more so with UTSA. I think with Cincinnati, they had enough clout coming into the season where teams would look at it as a big win. But that is a good point to bring up with UTSA. I don't know what they tried to schedule, but maybe they did try to schedule an SEC team or a Big 12 team, and they're like, no, we don't want any of that. And honestly, why would you? Right?
Yeah, and you got to figure any mid-conference team like that is going to be trying to get one or two of those marquee names. So when this conversation comes up again, they got to win to point to. That has to be the case for any of those teams, because otherwise you're going to get washed out like we're seeing right here. Because
Yeah.
if your record doesn't have one of those wins on there, it's hard to even argue against you versus a 2-loss Alabama team or whatever it is. It's like Bama's still probably better than you. Without having that head-to-head kind of comparison, some way to look at it, then that's going to be the case. The one egregious one is Cincinnati to Notre Dame. You have the evidence, the proof's in the pudding.
Direct comparison
The
point.
proof's in the pudding right there. How the hell do you leave Cincy out if that's the case? That will be a topic for next week.
I saw Notre Dame
it
at
shakes
5, and
out
I was
like
like,
that.
oh no, they're
We'll
going to
see.
do it, aren't they?
But yeah, that's college football. This is an exciting week for it. I'll probably be watching a couple games on the side screen here while doing my thing. So yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a fun week for
Yeah,
sure.
I'll definitely have that Alabama Auburn game up for sure. That's one of interest every year, regardless of whether you have skin in the fight or not. That Alabama Auburn game's been good for some classics.
And I think without I'm good on my end right now. Anything else you want to look to as the weekend's coming up here?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Hockey season is starting to ramp up.
That's right.
So been getting more and more into that. I think we'll talk a little bit more about the NHL season here in the next few weeks, as we get closer to Olympic time and stuff like that, and teams really start to settle themselves. I have been hearing my parents in the background, so I imagine your Sharks aren't doing so great tonight. But
Yeah, that was rough. I took a look. It was 7 left in the second, down 4-1. So yeah.
Oh,
that's
okay.
right.
Yeah.
One of those.
Like I said, my parents are Leafs fans, so I've been hearing them yelling every now and again in the background. I go, it's probably not good for Tap.
That's all right. Sharks are gonna be probably floating around 500, a little bit better than 500 though. That's been nice to see. So we'll see going down the line. But yeah, I think that will wrap us up for this Friday edition of Sports Clichés, episode number 5. I hope you all enjoyed. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube as well. You can see us also every Friday live on this channel right here that you're on, TapTOJ. We got the Sports Clichés podcast, obviously, there on YouTube, so check us out there. And I think that will sign us off. I'm Jay. That's Craig. There we go. That's Craig.
I was typing.
Hope you all have a great rest of your night, and looking forward to some awesome weekend of sports action. Catch you next time.
Peace.